All right. Welcome everyone to Malangani, New South Wales, and the first ever hemp regenerative ag workshop with a farm walk. Those who are joining us on Zoom, we just did a roundtable communication, and hopefully you heard that. But also thank you first to the elders of this area, to the Bunjalung, and the 20 languages of the past. Also, thank you to the Australian Industrial Hemp Association or Alliance and the Australian Hemp Council for sponsoring this event. I think after my speech, we might have Tim Schmidt, the president of the Hemp Council, phoning in and giving a little talk. As you can tell, I'm not a local. I come from a small town in the southern state of the United States, and I grew up on a hay farm with my mother, and she taught me about hemp and kanaf. And we always talked about coming to Australia. In 2014, I did something that most Americans never do, and I got my passport. And then I came to Australia. I traveled the East Coast, and after a year, I basically fell in love with Australia, and my passion for hemp kind of grew. And I realized one thing, and that is if you take care of the soil and take care of the people that take care of the soil, then that is the win. That's a win, win, win. And that's why we're all here today. In Australia, my background is a carpenter. And yeah, first I'll do this. Acknowledgement of country. We acknowledge the traditional owners and the custodians of the lands in which we meet. We pay our respects to the ancestors and their descendants to continue cultural and spiritual connections to country. We recognize their valuable contributions to Australia and the global society. So my background is in carpentry. I went to TAFE for 2 years, and most of my career has been with timber and steel. And just recently, I've got certified in hempcrete. But my passion in hemp started about 10 years ago. And basically, I would just spend hours on YouTube just devouring as much hemp knowledge as I could. And I believe something that I think everyone in this room believes as well is that the hemp revolution is coming. And also, we've got a few guys in here that are hemp gurus, and we've got a kanaf guru. If you don't know what kanaf is, it's a beautiful plant, looks just like hemp, and it's grown in the tropics. So it's just as amazing as hemp. Myself, Phil, my partner Josh, and my partner Kim, we started Hemp Proof. Hemp Proof right now is focused on the marketing of hemp products, hemp farming, like farmers, crop rotation, and just try to do anything that connects farmers to hemp, and then basically B2B, and then hopefully B2C. With that, I think I'm going to leave it either to John Muir or to Tim Schmidt, the president of the AHC. And thank you all for coming, and thank you all for zooming in. We appreciate it.
He's just come back from the New Zealand hemp conference yesterday.
Yeah, I'll do this.
Thanks, it is one.
So it's going to be what do you?
All right. So while you do that, can I talk, please, or not? Yeah, I can talk all day, as you know. So John Muir, I'm an ex-Manly beach bum, headed west to Hawkesbury Ag and never came back to the Manly Beach. Don't regret it, but I still sail. I went to Hay, Helen, Booligal, where the crows fly backwards to keep the dust out of their eyes, and loved it for 12 years. I then went to Cambodia, Philippines, and did all the AID, ACR international work. I left the Department of Ag because it wasn't sustainable. They treat the soil like a factory. Inputs in, inputs out. I left. I went into land care, catchment care, don't care. That's what we did. I took land care to the Philippines, started global land care. So big shit's happening with land care. Look out. We're going to take, the UN is looking at land care as an approach to solve the world's problems. And this is high research people. We are going to Canberra next week to the best international conference in the world in Canberra, in Parliament House. Every year it's held by the Crawford Fund. Write that down. Google it. It is the best conference on sustainable ag. Can we write that sort of stuff up if people want? Can someone record? We need a helper. We need to go for Rich. You're good at writing. Can you write things like that? You can't. He's not good. But I hear what you're saying. Anything else? Anything else? if someone can write on the whiteboard or on the butcher's paper, we're welcome. I think Steve knows how to write. He's a doctor. Won't be able to understand.
Read it, no.
Yeah, right. I'll agree with that. I actually have to edit all the doctors that write their hemp reports, you know, to bring it down to year 12, leading to the level. So I've had the pleasure of working for the government, the federal government, who are taxpaying the pleasure. They have a project called Agri-Futures, which is the biggest R&D projects of Australian agriculture. All sorts of things. So just Google Agri-Futures and you wouldn't believe it goes on there. And they have a major project in hemp, which is one called the National Hemp Variety Trials. And guess what? Your nearest hemp variety trial is organic at Stanthorpe on Trap Rock Country, granite country. You need a packed lunch to cross for a day trip. And we've got hemp growing there organically, as well as 9 other sites around Australia, every state. So I will be promised to them, I think, certain people how to grow hemp, for us, the other stuff, most of them have done for them seen. So they're learning how to grow. It's been going for a couple of years. We've got a new cycle of research coming after this year finishes, and a whole new 5-year program is hemp, including including life cycle analysis at a Graham Lancaster's University, Lismore. They're based at Lismore. They're here in the backyard. So make use of them, use them. Stewards are not using them. Steward uses them. They need to come and do the validation of all the work that's happening in Kent around Australia. So John Muir, I'm passionate about land care. I'm passionate bottom-up land care, not top-down. And I'm passionate about hemp. So that's why we thought we'd run this workshop. I'm in the old world. I wish I was 20. I want to learn about this stuff. I don't know about it. I was talking the old world. Haven't farmers changed? They're farmers. Their dads taught them the old way. How do we change? So we're going to challenge you today. We're not going to talk about marijuana. Do we agree? The cops will be here. The compliance people will be here to say the difference. We will get bogged down and go down a rabbit hole if we go there. I do apologize. Let's stick to low THC and make that work and let other people fight the battle for the other one, because I haven't got enough energy for both. I'm sorry. It draws. I was up till 3:30 this morning just trying to survive over the last 3 days, not just because of this, but for hemp. So bear with me if I fall or faint. I've never done it in my life, but anyway, if it happens, it happens. We're going to the field this afternoon. Are you going to go through the program now, Logan, so we all know what we're doing? The program was, this morning we're here. We'll get the background. We'll finish this morning after several talks with Stuart, who will introduce us to his farm and welcome us and then take us to it after lunch. All right, we all know who's here now. So use those spare times to talk and share and interact, because nothing worse than leaving and saying, oh, was that person there? Or why didn't I speak to that? It's the personal. You can talk to, I can send you tons of stuff and websites. It's the people that make this stuff happen. It's the white stuff, isn't it? It's the transactions, isn't it, Kim? We'll talk about value chaining. We going? We good? I'm going to shut up. Tim wants to go, is he? Tim is the president of the Australian Hemp Council. I'll let Tim introduce himself. He's trying to ski, so I'm not going to hold him up. Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much, John. Tim Schmidt's my name, and I'm a farmer from Northern Tasmania and president of the Australian Hemp Council. Well done, John and Stuart, Logan and Stuart, for the initiative with the Regenerative Hemp Workshop. Hemp and regenerative farming have a very good relationship, and there's positive aspects that can develop along those lines. If you haven't already, I'd suggest you go onto the Australian Hemp Council website and subscribe to the monthly report. That report will keep you right up to date with all the events that are occurring right across Australia with the hemp industry. Just wanted to cover 3 quick points, just recent developments. As a result of the fibre forum, the council is looking at a cooperative structure of the national industry, and one of these proposals have significant financial backing that we can make finance available to the industry that might not otherwise be available. The second point is there's been a very important change in the legislation in New South Wales agriculture, allowing hemp resin to be included under industrial hemp, with the condition that it's not medicinal product, but it does open up revenue streams to hemp farmers where they can supply industry requirements. So that's a very positive step in the right direction. Step in the opposite direction is the APVMA deciding to make it illegal to sell hemp oil to animals, or for animals. And the AHC is going to take a strong stance opposing that. We'll be writing to the APVMA with key points as to why they're overstepping the mark. And then we'll take on a campaign to have that decision reversed for the sake of the industry. Yeah, feel free to reach out, and I suggest that with the iHemp New South Wales and Queensland Hemp Association, the membership, the membership of these organisations has been growing very well, and that type of membership gives us better political clout and ability to service the industry. So, and I hope you have a great day learning about regenerative farming and hemp. Yeah, thank you so much. Did they come?
Look out. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
Right.
Go ahead.
Here I go.
Gonna break your eyes.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
No, you're not recording, but it's not my hand. Oh, there you go.
That working now? Oh, you can hear me. Okay, I'm getting the thumbs up for Logan. Thanks, Logan. Okay. I wasn't sure it's out, didn't it?
You're good.
Oh, you can do it.
I'm not in and out with him.
That's a bit intimate, doesn't it? Yeah.
Sorry.
Right, here we go. Awesome. You can hear me. And I've got a clicker too, have I? Okay, forward and back. Right. It's on. You can hear me. I'll just yell loud. So I was away, and my plane from Darwin was a bit late, so I never start with apologies, but I probably do need to. I just hastily put this together last night for about 3 hours before I went to bed at 1 o'clock, and then drove down here from 5:30. So it'll be a bit disjointed, but I think I'll make the points. So let's start. Always a disclaimer, because what I'm projecting to you is just my opinion. I'm not going to change how you think about things. I'm just going to say, well, this is a story, and if you choose to use it on your farm, do it so at your own risk.
Just like we did on the BMP.
Just like we did in the BMP. Do it at your own risk. So quickly, I better have a look here and see what I wrote. So me in 30 seconds. So raised on the farm, family full of engineers, ag science base stuff, a few other post-grad stuff. Kim went to Hawkesbury. Yep, you went to Hawkesbury with me. First time I've seen him for 39 years, and John's a couple of years ahead of me. We never saw you. Most people think I'm good at agronomy, so that's the badge I wear, but I do agribusiness and business management. I problem solve and troubleshoot. So hemp is just another crop to problem solve. and grow better. Yeah. Work with grains, livestock. I'm a livestock nutritionist. Also work with sugarcane, horticulture, most things ag generally. Haven't done tree crops. Written grower guides for many crops, including new species like chicory and plantain, new hybrids like Festaloniums, basically just B&P guides. Even we tried to grow rice in Northern Australia, wrote the guide how to do that, then Sunrise pulled out on it. Continuously improving farming is what I do. Worked in the eastern states of Australia and in New Zealand for 3 years, so I'll get a twang every now and then. I can't shake it. You know, it was 30 years ago, almost. And presented papers all over the place, including overseas, but that's not important today.
You're presenting in here.
Which is even better.
Even better.
Even better. So the camera sees me, or I've got to step back here. Right, okay. Okay. So I'm going to talk about what's wrong with conventional agriculture. So that's my topic. I'm going to say what is wrong with conventional agriculture. That's my discussion today, not what's wrong with it. I'm going to talk a little bit about agronomy, talk about the best of both worlds, or all worlds of farming practices. And then just to give an example that we've got to use all these things as tools. I'm going to walk through a crop cycle, just the decisions you've got to make. So, of course, we're dealing with hemp. I thought I'd show you a pretty cool hemp crop. So this is a farm system, and I don't want to badge a farm system. I never use a badge for farm system. Now, I don't call it conventional farming. I don't call it organic. I don't call it biodynamic, regen ag, or anything of that nature. We just, in the real world, we just use tools. All the tools is what we use. I don't call it anything. Like, never use the term of conventional farming versus non-conventional farming. People label, in my mind, in my world, a farming system, they want to sell you something, or they're from the urban world, they're urbanites, as I call them, or they're trying to get a funding grant, or there's something they want from you. They want you to support their blog so they get more hits and get their sponsorship from Google or someone. Normal farming system is different in every farm and every location. So this farm's Crindai, New South Wales. What someone does in Tamworth will be a little bit different. What someone does in Orange will be a little bit different. And you go around the world, it's a little bit different. So this farm here, this crop looks pretty good. I hope people agree. So this guy has been doing no-till. People will probably say today how evil glyphosate is. We don't believe that in the real farming world generally. This was a no-till crop. It followed cotton. It had feedlot manure, so we used recycled organic material as the nutrition source. No one, he wouldn't dream of labeling it organic or regen or anything like that. We used a protective post-sowing pre-emergent herbicide to get the weed control. And what else is there? The rotation suited was cotton. Before then, it was a grass species, so we had the disease under control. So that's just a good crop. It's just used the best of both worlds. When it came to the grain fill stage, we had Heliophis. The Heliophis hide in the head of the grain head. You can't get it with chili spray to repel it. You can't get it with BT, which is a bacterial spray, or viruses. So they're hiding. So you need something translaminar. So we did a spray of, we did chili spray to repel any others coming. We used the virus, we used the bacterial biopesticides, but we also use the translaminar or systemic, we used to call them. So this I know where you're coming from. So with horticulture, if you bring it to someone's table, you got no tolerance of any damage. So with horticulture, like beans or corn, you can't have a corn cob in the supermarket with a hole in it, or a hole in a bean. Usually they use a translaminar spray with about a 7-day residual, and it's one of the newer modern chemicals that aren't very toxic to the environment or humans. There's always upgrading of the knowledge, and things get banned continually. So what we were using 40 years ago is far worse than we do today. And there's things that need to be banned, probably like insect growth regulators, but at the moment it's still a tool that we've got to keep using. Anyway. I know what you're saying. Yeah, yeah. So we retrofitted him to grow hemp because this is like 2018. Yeah, it's 2018. So
Sorry. John?
I just wanted to ask, was the plan to put hemp after the cotton, after the grass on purpose, or was it just an experiment?
well, it's a 45 hectare pivot, so it was a pretty good experiment. So the question was, it wasn't his planned crop rotation, which I'm going to talk about anyway. But no, don't be sorry. So the good question. So it just fitted in between. It was only a 120-day crop. This one it was.
Sorry.
For the Zoom pivot. Okay. Well, this is the first one today. Right. So the question was, I think, was this a planned crop? Did he have 12 months before planning to get it ready? Which is what I would always advocate. No, this was a fellow that just happened to have a spare paddock in February. We said we need to sow in mid-March. It says, how much you got to pay me? He says, here's a contract. And he says, I'm in. And that's what he did. You wouldn't grow hemp without a contract. Anybody. That's tip for the day. Quote for the day. Do not grow hemp without a contract. You'll never sell it. And anyway, so we took it through the grain, and then with nasties, we had to desiccate it because we're in July, and Corindai is fairly high altitude, about 600 meters. We had to desiccate it with Reglone, which is another tool, because it's the only way we're going to recover all the grain, because hemp is an intermittent flower, if we're getting down the detail a bit there, John. But if you set a ton of grain a hectare, you only ever harvest 85% of it, because some of the grain is going to be not filled, some of the grain is going to be mature and dropping out. And the easy way to recover more of your grain is to use a desiccant. If you're going to label yourself as some farming system that won't allow it, or has a veto on man-made products, there is a problem with that. You just be happy to recover less grain, and you'll still be fine.
So there are natural desiccants as well. There are products out there, there are organic certified, and do what Rob's talking about, and if you use them, they're all usually expensive. I wonder about the virus. They're putting them through the irrigation systems now.
Virus, yeah.
So
Yeah.
would that get in the head?
Well,
irrigation system.
You can look it up later. Those, yeah, we use Coragen as the systemic or translaminar insecticide, and that went on as irrigate because you help get in the pet. But if you're putting a virus, you want to try and get penetration, but it's very hard to get in. Yeah. So basically, so just get the principle, because we're going down detail, but solve the critters inside the head with the Coragen. Stop any that just sort of suddenly starting to land and hatch and try to get in with the virus and the BT, the bacteria, biopesticides, and then try and repel the moths with some chili spray.
So guess what? Hemp needs water, fertilizer, and pesticide.
And weed management too. So
All. Thank you.
okay, right. So I've only got half an hour. It's already used half of it already. 2 minutes left. Okay. So that's just the example. So in the real world, we just don't label anything unless like you're doing organic, and you have to be truth in labeling. And the urbanites, the urban people, want something that has a farming system that doesn't have any man-made inputs. That's fine. If you can get a premium and you're growing organic, go organic. But if in the normal farming world, you just use the best of everything there. And I'll use on this farm the best of everything. Like we said, we use recycled organic material. We use some biopesticides. 100 kilometers away, we'll do something totally different. Just going a little bit. Oops, go back. Okay, so that's quite a bit further down track. That's about when we're trying to protect the grain during seed set and grain fill. Looks pretty good.
Heliothis all through it.
Heliothis loves hemp. That was a variety called MS77.
Eco fiber.
Eco5 MS77.
Ananda Foods.
Now, it wasn't a BMP manual written at the time, so Ananda Foods decided to go overseas. I'll just say that anyway. Probably go to jail now. They went to Kentucky.
You've already been there.
No. And that's a crop during harvest. That's what the grain looks like. So I just thought I'd just show you some good
Excellent.
pictures, trophy photos as we call them in the world.
Good.
And then, but crop husbandry is what we're on about. So all these things I talk about, and you'll get people throwing stuff at you all the time. They go, they don't want you to know this. You know, like John had said, there's an alternative to reg loan, but they don't want you to know that. I always laugh when I hear that because I say, who are they? You know, who are they that don't want you to know? CIA, the government, Ukraine,
Monsanto, maybe.
Monsanto. You know, like I don't know, and that's my point. I mean, these pesticide companies, I don't think they're evil. They usually cost about $100 million to bring a new molecule to the market, very similar to pharmaceuticals. You know, they have thousands of people. They can't all be in on something. If there's something to whistleblow, they will.
Good point.
It's like the moon landing. You know, there's probably people here that believe the moon landing or landings didn't happen, but they spent 8% of the USA GDP in 1968, and it had 800,000 people working for them on the project. I'm sure someone would have whistleblowed something that wasn't something that happened. But anyway, but in agriculture, I just want to point out something that what I think we do. Oh, that's all right. I forgot about that. That's my midnight joke. There's a lot of fairy tale science in all worlds of science, all of agriculture rather. But I just want to talk about Kim. If you remember Ian Valentine, this is one of my aha moments in first year.
Ian Valentine.
Yeah.
Doctor.
Yeah.
Pastors.
Yeah. And I saw him in New Zealand 10 years later when I worked there. I know him.
Don't digress.
Sorry.
I am. Oh, sorry.
He is. We do.
I am digressing. So just farming, just because if we're talking about regenerative farming, we're talking about often about having, you know, biodiversity and having a lot of things in the same paddock. Just beware, agriculture 101, as we learn it, is that you have ground zero or year zero, and the ecosystem, if you don't intervene, will keep going to diversity until you get some endpoint. It could be a savanna forest or sclerophyll forest, like I saw in Darwin area this week. Could be a rainforest somewhere, Amazon. Could be something that will go through succession. So in farming, the last 10,000 years, we work on ground zero generally because we use annual plants like wheat, other things, but you get the most harvestable material. That was my moment with Ian Valentine. The most material you can harvest per hectare that's food is when you start the year with ground zero. If you start diversifying it, it might be healthy soil, might be more critters and biodiversity, but you'll have less to harvest. So just be a word of warning about going too far. So if you're farming, you intervene because you're managing your ecosystem to be as close to ground zero as you can, whether it's a volcanic eruption, whether it's you sprayed it with Roundup, whether you plowed it, whether you've had fire stick agriculture, you're aiming for that. That's how humans become civilization. We didn't practice that when we were hunter-gatherers. So I just thought I'd put that thought there, because you know, I hear all the time, oh, we got to have, you know, multi-species cover crops. That's good, but then we could have a weed problem from that. Or you could have a big trash that you have to digest somehow in the soil, and you might not have enough nitrogen there.
And
so,
how do you harvest a non-monoculture crop? It's got everything in it. It's the machinery nightmare.
you got bits of canola, tillage, radish.
It's not impossible.
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
It's hard. So just a word of warning there. So anything you do in farming's got an opposite reaction. Just like physics, there's an opposite reaction to everything you do. So that's why I say we use the best of all worlds in real farming that's not labelled, because what we did 10 years ago has caused a problem. We go no-till farming, which I helped roll out in the 90s. We got rid of, people will know from Tamworth, dead nettle almost straight away. I got rid of buckwheat, which is probably a big problem back there in the 80s. But then 5 to 10 years later, we got milk thistle and flaxleaf fleabane. So we had to change the system. You just can't go with one system. You've got to grab all these tools that everybody's here has good ideas, and then run that as a system and be dynamic and keep thinking what's my next problem? And when we did no-till farming with that nasty product called glyphosate, we went from 0.5 organic matter, and we went up, and then we plateaued. We don't go forever. We plateaued about 3.5 to 5% organic matter. And while we're getting there, we got there quick. 10 years from the New South Wales Department of Agriculture in Tamworth, you had to find all that nitrogen somewhere to get the carbon to nitrogen ratio right, and adding that trash, because most of the organic matter went into the soil as straw, very high carbon nitrogen ratio. Anyway, I must be running out of time, so I'll just keep going. I was just going to write, I had a few ideas last night. If we go get rid of no-till, we go no man-made products, no glyphosate. This is an American idea about how much more fuel you use, different systems. Can't remember what it's supposed to mean. Someone could look
Can
at it.
you read them out, please, for everyone?
Okay, so this is an American idea. Conventional tillage, you use 5.4 gallons per hectare each crop cycle. Continuous no-till using 1.8 and everything in between. So there's a big difference. But the other point is, which I observed, other people observed, we went from, when we went no-till on the Liverpool Plains, went from 450 horsepower tractors to about 140 horsepower tractors. Went from doing 3,000 hours on a 450 horsepower tractor a year. You know, used to have the night shift, the son would take over for the father or wife and whatever, to 300 hours. 300 hours.
Less capital.
Less capital.
Controlled traffic.
Less carbon in the atmosphere. We stored carbon in the soil. So if we make a veto on glyphosate because someone's done a trial, 1 in 3,000 trials that says it hurts humans, we're going to put all that carbon back in the atmosphere. Everybody have to capitalize about $500,000 on a tractor, if nothing else. So it's a, like I said, every action is the opposite.
There are organic alternatives to Roundup, okay? They're expensive at the moment. We'll talk about that. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, so anyway, so that's, I've got all the reasons, what will happen if we denounce no-till, but I won't do that. We'll run out of time.
We're
so
setting the
quickly,
scene for hemp. That's good. That's good.
just quickly, I just got to say, you know, a sexy picture of hemp, just for keeping in context. And I got agronomy there, but just crop management. So just remember, when you're growing the crop, you can't control the genetics you're using. Someone else has already done that. You can't control the environment. You do the chocolate wheel spin. What's it going to be this year? Wet, dry.
Climate change.
Or it's not going to rain on time. The only thing you do is do the management, the agronomy of the crop. So you've got to be versatile in Australia. You know, a lot of the ideas come from North America or Europe. It's it rains on time every time, very predictably.
Well, it used to. It used to.
Well, you get
climate change.
You get a few more bushfires and all that stuff. Yeah. So, but you get my point.
Yeah.
And when we're trying to get new ideas like hemp, this is just a random slide from another presentation. We always get people wanting to grow crops that are new and different, or some people, about 2.5% of the people. They're the ones I would focus on when I'm trying to introduce chicory to Australia and no-till to Australia and hemp to Australia. Those people will go ahead without all the knowledge and they'll grow some crops. Everybody will be looking. They'll have some failures and then they might say, that didn't work, and they'll move on to the next shiny thing. It's the early adopters that hopefully we've got them in the room as well as innovators and people want to watch. The early adopters won't grow a crop until they've got all the gaps filled. And that's what we're about today. You have your advisors, you have your discussion groups, you have days like this to fill the gaps. Once the gap's filled, people will start growing the crop. They're the ones everybody wants to be like, so they'll drag everybody with them to grow the crop. Stuart must have seen that with the organic soybeans. You know, you had a few people, then you had more people and more people again. So that's just the adoption curve. So we've got to fill these gaps before we can grow good hemp crops. Agronomy and farm management. There's people here that probably want to buy product or listening that want to buy product. This is a real production curve in Tasmania about 4 or 5 years ago. The average yield, you can't read, is about 0.5 tonne. The further crops failed, and the further crops did well over a tonne. But that's useless for a supply chain because you don't know what you're going to get. You give 20 farmers a supply contract and it's based on an area. What do you get? So you've got to use all your management skill to try and tighten it up. An outlier either side is bad for a supply chain. So you want to get all your answers and your farming practices, borrow from every system that everybody advocates to get a nice, tight, predictable yield. Then the factory can process the hemp and not contract too much hemp and or fall short. Very hard. And you can't quite see that. But that's trying to show that once we get everything tight, we shifted to higher yields. We want everybody to go together, get the high yields. Then you've got a good do that? Yeah, anyway, you can see. You know what I'm saying anyway. I was going to go through all the things that you need to know about hemp to make it better. It will grow better, but that's in the BMP anyway, one interpretation of another. How much time have I got? Anybody?
We've delayed lunch.
We're done? I'm done?
Delayed lunch. What time does the sun go down here, Stu? Stu?
5 minutes?
5 o'clock.
5 minutes, thank you.
We're running an hour late. If you bear with us, we'll be late for dinner. Is that okay?
I've got half people fascinated, half them angry with me, so I'll see how we go.
Hey, that means you're doing something.
So why we need all the tools out there, whether it's regen and organic and recycled organic, or your biochar and your conventional herbicides and pesticides and biopesticides and all those things, because in your crop cycle, there's things you can't predict. You need to be proactive and reactive. And someone said earlier on, do you plan? Yes, you do. So if you're going to grow a crop like hemp you haven't grown before, you'll be back there planting a year before, or you should be anyway, unlike that grower in Trindide. But he was well chosen because we knew he was coachable, is the word we use for new crop growers. He's a coachable farmer. But you plan back here, have you got a supply contract? It's the first thing. Have you got a variety that can grow for you, that will grow in your area? What is your previous crop? Is it going to carry disease, the hemp that we don't even know? What diseases affect hemp, basically? And what's your farm system? You're going to go no-till or conventionally farmed or some combination. You have all that in the planning, and you should be, every 10 farmers I talk to about hemp, 9 of them I say it's not for you. Because thank you, somewhere there's a gap.
We talk more people out of growing hemp, unfortunately.
There's probably a few, I know there's a few people here I haven't told about the grow it, so another day.
Not Stu.
No, Stu's just angry with me at the moment anyway.
It's okay.
No, you don't.
Part of the game.
And once you're ready to go, then you've got land preparation. Are you going no-till or are you going to go tillage? And what have you done with the previous crop stubble? So, if you're going to go no-till, you have to deal with your harvester and spread your straw around and maybe spray it. Burn it or turn it in or spray some organic microbiome digester onto it to get it so you can handle it. Or have a machine that can go through the trash. When we did no-till, late 80s, early 90s, there was no such thing could go through more than about 4 tonne a hectare of trash. And you grow a grain crop, once your grain species mature, you get half grain, half stubble generally. So once we went no-till, we got better water use efficiency. We went from, I think, 2.7 Liverpool Plains hectare of wheat. We went up to about 6 in about 4 or 5 years once we got
dry land.
And we couldn't get into the stubble, so we had to wait for machines to
catch up.
We couldn't build them because all the ideas just couldn't handle it. We end up with 36-inch discs and moisture-seeking points that are cast, so they wear better. And then we had press wheels to press the moisture back in, and then we had press wheel from the side because it was too much pressure for the seedling comes up. So all those things. So your land prep, you've got to decide whether you're going to use a pesticide or herbicide or not. When you're planting, just like the planting date, the day of planting, which is, I stress in the BMP, is that'll determine 80% of your yield. You got to
Repeat
decide,
that, please, sir,
repeat that.
what you just said.
80% of your yield is determined the day you're planting. Because you're going to decide what machine you're going to use, what row space you're going to have. You might
Date?
the date. If you're going to rely on inter-row cultivation for your weeds, you've got to have the width right. If you're going to use herbicides, you can have a tighter width, which hemp likes, which is about 7-inch rows rather than 20-inch rows. So if you've got a herbicide integrated weed management, you can use it. You can probably go more ideal for the hemp. Your planter will, you need singulation of seed. Boom, 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 boom. If you crowd seed together, hemp's autotoxicity.
Please explain.
Allelopathic. So the first one out of the ground, if it's not coming up evenly, the two ones beside it, too close to it that are a few days behind, the one in front will kill the others. That's what it is. Lucent does that too. It's
Competition.
competition, but it's actually a bit of a chemical thing. You can alleviate that with mycorrhizal fungi, which you can put in. So it's again probably organic world thing, but we just use it in normal farming. So for me, you plant the crop, you choose you might choose to dress your seed with insecticide for things you don't know is in the ground, like false wireworms. You might put a fungicide on your seed, because we don't know what pathogens kill seedling hemp. No one knows yet. We suspect it's Pythium, but every time I've had a foul crop, got it assayed, not some across the university, somewhere nearby, won't mention who, they come up with 5 pathogens. And they say, well, the sample you gave, this one dominated, but you don't know which one started all the infection. So that's why, the best of all the wells, we might need a fungicide protection.
Preventative.
You plant the crop, then your best weed control, if you use a herbicide, is post-sowing, pre-emergent. I'm a big advocate. You should be irrigating hemp at the moment, over top irrigating. So you plant crop, weed, post-emergent, pre-emergent herbicide, and irrigate all on the same day. You do that, you got your seed rate right, you'll get a good yield.
So just remember, we're not recommending this, because regenerative ag is different. We're just saying where we're coming from. This is the real world we live in. And at the end of the days, the 2 days will say, are there alternatives to this world paradigm? So bear with us, please.
Yeah, but it is regenerative, defined regenerative ag.
What
I hate definitions. Is it a VTOL man-made substances, or that's just someone's interpretation?
It's a journey.
Someone wants to sell you a training course or something.
Sorry, repeat. Say again. So the question is, it's all about the soil.
It's all about soil. But you can, people would argue around the planet, no till benefits the soil, because you get more organic matter, you get more organisms in the soil, you get earthworms, for example. That's a consequence of
let's keep
no-till
going.
farming.
We're
Okay.
halfway.
Anyway, blah, 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 almost finished, everybody. So early post-emergent, 10 days in the crop, you've got to decide you're going to keep it or not. And you plow out. It's often something we recommend because you just didn't get enough seed out of the ground. But then there's the opportunity to do your post-emergent herbicides. Mid-crop management, you do a tissue test or something to see where you are with nutrients. Again, you can use some other organic-inspired product, or you might use the conventional fertilizer. Reproductive stage, where we talked about protecting from insect pests. And then the lockup stage, when you turn the water on and off, you've got to make a decision there. That's not
critical.
Any farm system, H2O and sunlight, your best friends in farming. Pre-harvest, where you desiccate or not, and so forth. And
well,
someone's going to talk
we
about.
won't talk about harvesting and the other stuff. That's a nightmare.
And you need someone talented to harvest it and willing to harvest it without wrecking their harvester. And that's another reason why you might want to desiccate, because he says, I can only come on Friday.
Can't dry it.
Can't dry it.
Where's the dryer?
Yeah. So that's
grain.
That's
We're
not me.
Mainly grain crops here. There is another part of this plant that is the stubble.
Yep.
And these crops can be 8 meters tall. And we're harvesting crops at 8 meters for the grain and the 7 meters of stubble at the same time in Australia today.
So that, thank you.
Questions, Q&A for Rob, quick please. There's one on the links. We're all got, how many people we got on Zoom?
About 10.
10.
There you go.
So Kate has asked, do we need to think more about cycling through different systems to manage the pests rather than ground zero?
Yeah. So
Yes. Next question.
crop rotation is the answer
Rotation.
for pests. Although if you've got something that flies in from 500 kilometers away, you can't really manage
So
that on your
instead
own
of
farm.
saying location, we say rotation.
It's not a pest of hemp yet, but fall armyworm hasn't decided it likes hemp. But fall armyworm will fly 200 kilometers in one night. And Heliophis can do the same, although they generally go about 3 or 4 kilometers to save energy. But you can't manage them on your farm. Yeah. Okay. Next question.
Any more questions, please? Sorry, anyone?
Yeah. So repeat the question. So am I personally concerned about pesticides and what chemicals? You said use the term what it does to the environment and insect populations.
Do you have children, Rob?
I've got children, so I know what you're saying, where you're coming from, and everything's a chemical. You're full of chemicals too. So just of course it's man-made. It's a chemical like a natural chemical too.
Exactly.
Just get that in context. So man-made chemicals are regulated and they're tested to death. Anything that's organically derived doesn't have to go through that testing. So you may, not saying you do, but just because it's natural doesn't mean it's safe. You know, plants have chemical warfare all the time against their pests. Soil, if you did soil testing between conventional farm systems, we'll use that word, but a system that uses man-made pesticides and ones that's organic and say it's gone no-till, you'll find they're very similar. I know people go, oh my God, no, that's not right, because I believe differently, but the different.
Absolutely. We know that.
Well, no,
Fact.
well,
Fact.
I'm going to get on that. So decline insect population, there's 2 drivers there, as far as my reading is first one, insect growth regulators are probably not a very good idea anymore as a class of insecticide.
Yep.
And B is that we're so much better on the planet of good monoculture farming that we don't have diversity in the paddock, and trees get in the way of things where we used to love trees and paddocks.
So we are not arguing. We're just saying this is the real world and we're all on a journey. Yeah. So that's why we're here. Rob is asked him to set the scene.
Yeah. So I would say silver bullets. I hate the silver bullet. Oh, use my product because it's going to, solve global warming and blah, 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 world poverty and all that. There's many ways of achieving a good, sustainable farm system and a healthy soil. It's not like there's one way to do it and that's it.
Yeah. Any more questions? I've got none on the chat. Sorry.
Oh, best management practice?
That's this one. Best management. Every book and every crop will have a BMP. And has one on ag.
And like I say, University of Queensland, I hate acronyms.
Yeah.
And I just use one BMP.
If they've got acronyms, tell us.
IMP, integrated pest management, IPM, integrated pest management, and then we throw a new one with a W, so integrated weed management. You just use the best, all the tools available to achieve what you want to do.
I like the neighbourhood one. What's that?
Which one?
Neighbourhood. The neighbourhood pest management. You do it in the garden. You look after. You all spray together.
Yeah.
So you're controlling it's called neighbourhood.
Yeah.
The cotton industry does it.
Well, if you've got rust in your wheat crop, you have a social obligation to get rid of the
So
rust
people
in your
work
crop.
together now to fight things badly or good. They're working together now for the good or the bad. The Green Revolution fed the world 60 years ago. We were starving the developing countries. We threw pesticides, we built dams, we irrigated, we fertilized. It fed the world. At what cost?
Yeah, but
That
that's
the
right.
issue.
And one of the things I dropped down last night is that I'm not saying the number stick with it, but I believe the land mass of the earth, not the ocean,
Oh, yeah.
is about 37%. There you go. 37% of the land that's capable of doing agriculture. And so there's an argument, do you have it all diverse and lots of different species working together? Or do you say, no, I'm just going to have Rob's ground zero monoculture and do the best we can of 15% of the land and leave the other 20% for nature, wildlife, and that. And
That's a big
I don't know what the answer is. I'm just saying that's the discussion point that's soon to be coming around now.
It's like, do we keep people out of the forest? But people always work with the forest, you know, like, where's the line? What's nature? We're trying to mimic nature. That's what we're trying to do. Mimic nature.
Well, bar growth was first, sorry, yeah.
Shannon.
We don't put research gap. What happens in terms of green minutes and get environment now from countries where we export our grains?
I don't want it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Rob
so-
is a guru on this. He did a major trial on 10 varieties at Bonshore, 20 herbicides, all different plantings of 10 varieties of hemp at Bonshore. If you're into herbicides, look at that. That'll show you where the new herbicides are leaving. By the way, AgriFutures have a BMP and also a gap information, a gap analysis as well.
Do that question.
Sorry, Rob.
Yeah, no, and Bugger is the god of knowledge in herbicides. Yes, I'm just a minnow that uses someone else's ideas. But ask Bugger today about that.
Anything
Right,
else?
the question was,
Your
yes,
point
there are
was-
bans.
Your point was, yep.
Well, I'm just about to say it.
Do we know already how to manage? Still be
Good question.
Bees.
Can I quote you? Can I quote you? Can I quote you, please? Can I quote you to AgriFutures? Thank you. I will. And do they listen?
All right, let's do John. Bugger's point was for the audience that you know, we've got to be careful using glyphosate as a desiccant and regulate as a desiccant because some of our markets don't like that anymore. And your question?
very much impact on frequency generation for crop management assessment.
You mean like using sound or something like sound to repel?
There is a period.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 100%, because with the mycorrhizal fungi work, which I've done a fair bit, BAM, Glomus introdices, they all link hemp together and other crops. And yeah, there is work that if this plant's getting attacked, it'll tell the others via the network under the ground. Whether there's vibrations or I don't know. But anyway, I need to stop talking. So.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Rob. So when are you leaving, Rob? When are you leaving the building?
Okay, so I'm here until sunset,
Today.
and I'm gone.
You're not here tomorrow.
No, so
Grab him today, please. I'll follow up with you too, Sandy. That'll be good. I'll follow up with you. Thanks. Now, does Rob, Andrew need introduction? Can you introduce yourself, Joy? Rob is my saved me. He's at Stanthorpe, based with the CRT. He's now with Hybrid at Stanthorpe. I've known him on the coast with organic crops for years. We had a hemp crop at Stanthorpe on James Blundell Trap Rock Farm. There is no crop within 50 kilometres of ploughed ground. It's granite trap rock country. Nothing grows there except good old nature. And here's James with a trowel. The wedge has started. We're in. Sorry, Andrew.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. So I'll just give a bit of background there. I've done work 25 years ago. I had left working for one of the agricultural resellers, Nutrients equivalent these days, and I got interested in compost. I got to know Adam Wilson, and Adam's helped Stuart Larson in early days, especially to get started with compost and adding minerals to compost. So we got the same sort of product, compost, remineralized compost from Rockman Compost out on the Downs at Bowenville, and that's what we put under that that organic hemp crop. So the key issues, if you're going to plant anywhere, are Rutherglen bug and Heliothis. They're the key ones that love hemp.
Rutherglen bug.
Yep.
Seedling through to grain fill, not just at grain fill. I've seen 10 hectares killed by Rutherglen bug at seedling.
All right, just a bit of my background. I actually trained in beekeeping originally and worked as an apiarist for 5 years in total. And then I always believed that I'd go back and study horticulture. So I went back to Gatton College in 1986 till 89, did a horticulture degree. And my interest has always been production. I have always been interested in nutritional agronomy, just trying to make plants as healthy as you possibly can so they don't get attacked by insects. And so that'll come through in some of my slides. So what is regen? It stands for regeneration and typically refers to the process of renewal, regrowth, or restoration of something. Where do I aim this at? There we go. So when I started to investigate this topic, John asked me to, I looked up the National Soil Strategy, and this was put together by the Departments of Agriculture across Australia. It was released, this report, in May 2021. And it's well known within key government departments and industry that soil organic carbon continues to decline, especially in broadacre cropping regions across Australia. And so it's a nationwide issue. And we also know that we've got real key issues with drainage, with erosion, but the whole country knows also that salinity and acidity are the real key, affecting many, many hectares across Australia. So they've got to be addressed as well. All right, so looking at the National Soil Strategy, these are the goals that were put up in their report. They want to prioritise soil health. They want to empower soil innovation and people to look after the land, the stewards. They want to strengthen soil knowledge and capability. And they recognise that while Australia is rich in biodiversity, Australian soils are among the oldest and most depleted of nutrients in the world. And to a large degree, it's because of lack of seismic activity and other natural processes such as glaciation that help grind rocks and make soil. So that's the size of the challenge. And so you can see the areas that are yellow are the broadacre cropping areas. The areas behind that are native vegetation areas. And obviously a lot of that's cattle country and so on. But yeah, there'll be a species that will suit all those soil types. To a large degree, it's going to depend on what the hydration of the system is, what moisture we've got. And we know that Israel, to a large degree, has recovered a lot of their soils by irrigation and just being able to use water to grow crops where they wouldn't have before. All right, so we know that soil organic carbon is declining, especially in broadacre cropping. Salinity and acidity affect large areas, often due to misunderstanding the catchments and hydration and water flows. And a lot of it is to do with eroding those top soils that are very fragile. And it's often exaggerated, each of these issues, soil erosion, acidity and salinity, by tree clearing without understanding the whole hydrology of the catchment. So the real question comes down to, if we're going to do something about regenerating Australian soils, what are the expectations of the community? And so is it about maintaining the natural ecosystem, or do we want to improve it? And it becomes a societal and nationwide discussion, really. So these are the three goals that the National Soil Strategy came up with, and the one in the middle is the one where we as stewards see ourselves as being active. And within there, you've got the top one there, I'll read it out, is promote soil stewardship, optimize soil productivity, and sustainability and resilience, and help protect and enhance Australia's environment through improving our soils. And so increasing and maintaining soil and organic carbon is really key, and you'll see some of the info on that.
Sorry, I'm going to try and move the screen closer. Would that be a good idea later?
Later, yeah.
Not today, not later.
Yeah.
So we'll do that after lunch. But I'm trying to get, you'll all get copies of this, and it will get a podcast of it all. Is that okay? Sorry.
All right, so within horticultural agronomy and the fertilizer industry, you'll often see this graphic that shows the importance of each of the nutrients. So normally people will talk about 14 particular nutrients, and the most limiting of those will influence crop growth the most. So if your nitrogen is obviously a very common one that's used, if that's limiting, that'll limit the total. But any element at all, even the trace elements, including copper, zinc, they'll limit the potential of that crop. And so I use the same idea to explain what happens with moisture, soil type, soil depth. All these things have an influence on how our crop grows and on the environment. So, sorry, the environment as well has an influence, sorry. So organic carbon, nutrients, biology, all those things are impacting our crop growth in total. So if we can adjust them, influence them, then we have a better chance of improving our outcomes.
So the other analogy you all know is the speed of a convoy in the war was based on the slowest vessel. So even the fast ones had to go slow because it was based on the slowest vessel. That's, I don't play rugby, so I can relate to that. Sorry, you get the point. Thanks, Rob.
Okay, so I mentioned before Adam Wilson. I've known Adam for over 20 years, and he put this paper together with a few other authors. They're listed there. And I've got this article to pass on to people if they want to read it. So the water is the #1 growth promoter in the landscape or all of life, obviously. So I'll read this out. It'll take a little bit, but yeah, just be patient. Since settlement, Australian agriculture has transitioned from hydrated carbon-rich landscapes, abundant in trees and diverse pastoral systems, to a continent dominated by low-carbon soils, overgrazed grasslands, and vast fields of annual monoculture crops. Inappropriate farming practices, including deforestation, have led to longer intervals between sporadic and extreme rain events, highly incised streams, and declining aquifer recharging. Landscape drainage has had a sizable hydrological impact, resulting in significant drops in annual rainfall and increased desertification. All this culminated in the uncontrolled wildfires that took place in 2019 and 20, and extreme floods in 21 and 22. Research indicates that these water retention measures and practices can lower the regional temperature by 1.6 degrees and have the potential to increase production by 15 to 45%, adding significantly to national food security. Further, they provide tangible ways to reduce the intensity of Australia's, Europe's, Asia's, and North America's droughts, fires, and floods, which we're all aware of. So hydration of the landscape is absolutely key. And this is the importance of it. It said that 1% organic carbon is equivalent to 1 megalitre of water across a hectare. So
Can you please repeat that so everyone gets it?
okay, so that's actually 100 millimetres of water depth across a hectare of land.
1 megalitre is 4 inches of water across 1 hectare. Think about it. If you can change organic matter content in your soil by 1%, you're making water because it's holding on to it where it couldn't before. That is the most critical factor.
All right, so moisture and soil organic carbon go together, absolutely. All right, so what do we do to regenerate our soils? Obviously, we're trying to pay attention to moisture, organic carbon, but there's, like Rob was talking about with your toolbox, okay? So I also, as a horticultural agronomist, want to optimize yields. And so we want to reduce stresses We want to improve our nutrients. Obviously, temperature is key. What's happening in the root zone, soil depth, and percolating ability. So percolating ability is the ability of a soil to take water in, but also hold it and then allow it to move back up into the profile as the crop needs it. And there are soils in Australia that do it, but yeah, it all depends on soil type. And I just wanted to give an example with moisture. You know, management is changing things, and on Landline just Sunday 2 weeks ago, they had a documentary on cotton growing where they've done land levelling in the St. George area and also a farm near Moree, a big farm. And by land levelling and by automating their water movement, they've been able to reduce their labour significantly, and they've been able to move the water around the farm more quickly. So they're actually watering over a 1 day period now instead of 2. And so the cotton isn't waterlogged for 2 days. It recovers, it grows quicker, and they're getting better yields. And they're saving up to 1.5 megalitres per hectare, which is significant for any cotton crop.
I'm sorry, Rob. I'm going to have to, Andrew. Yesterday, I was told a crop in the Burdekin, the only winter crop I've got for seed increase this winter in Australia is a winter crop up north. They tested it yesterday, and guess what? It went over THC. What the hell? We are going for this is relevant to hemp. We are going to request another test and say that when they sample, they were up to their knees in mud. So the crop shuts down for 1 or 2 days, just like cotton. Hemp hates waterlogging. So the plant shut down, it's stressed. What does THC do? So the rules are not right. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole. I'm just saying environment, and THC are related, all right? As well as genetics. Sorry.
So drainage. So key for water use efficiency. So this farmer they were interviewing was saying, you know, he's got water now to grow another crop, and he was looking to buy other land beside nearby. Righto.
Yep.
Generally, they're pretty deep soils, and probably Rob could even speak more informedly on the soils out at St. George and Moree, but they are deep soils. But this cotton grower, a couple of the cotton growers they talked to, they were saying that on paddocks that they've got really good yields, they generally can't get a big increase. But where they had poor soils or poor drainage or some key issue, they were able to get like double-digit, better than 10% yield improvement generally. And so it was costing in the Moree area with a big farm they showed, it was costing like $4,000 a hectare, but they were recovering that in 2 years, getting 2 more bales per hectare
Andrew,
each year. Yeah.
I'm an irrigation agronomist. I've done most of that work all around the world on the Mekong. We've taken all this technology from Australia. They were growing 3 crops of rice a year, a ton of urea a crop. The crops look red from urea. They have now changed monoculture rice on the Mekong to this system. They could grow anything on the bed. Instead of a paddy, they can grow anything on a raised bed in a rotation. Rotation. Monoculture. Rob and I have been the cause of all this laser living because it's about water efficiency. But the question is, the cut areas, you just said, if you take the topsoil off, the hills and the hollows, the fills are fine. The topsoil, the biology is all there. If you just put fertilizer on that area, the cut areas, the fill will be beautiful. The cut areas will not grow for 50 years anywhere near where you've filled until you add biology. You cannot laser without putting, so what they do, they now spend $5,000 more to topsoil. They take the topsoil off, laser it, and then put the topsoil. So all these techniques, Kim, and you'll talk about this, Kim.
Instead of putting it in whole, laser it and then spread that.
Read topsoil. It's biology. Don't they get it? You can put tons of fertilizer on there. Tim was the speaking of irrigation, was the ex-president of the Irrigation Association of Australia. Adam Wilson was the ex-president of the Organic Association of Australia. So you're in good company, all right? Sorry, Steve. They learned. That's a new irrigation. They used to, and we learned. We learned. For 10 years later, nothing grew, and we're going, I'm putting 10 tons of super in your ear and nothing's happening. We are running late.
Okay, let's get going.
I've got a question. I was told to repeat the question. The question was, why do you cut and fill on topsoils and what's the consequences of it? Sorry, I think we'll try to answer. VAM, can someone explain VAM? We put it on the whiteboard. Rob, that's your baby. All right, you put it here in front of me is the question. I did put VAM on the whiteboard. The spelling right. You want the spelling. Sorry, Andrew. Sorry, Andrew. Go for it. Go. No,
So
go.
VAM is vesicular avascular mycorrhiza. So they're fungi that live in the root zone in a lot of species, even in some cropping situations, absolutely. But yeah, they're just one part of the picture as far as what's happening in soil, obviously. I won't go
Thanks.
past that.
But it's about crop rotation. The VAM is about crop rotation.
You feel bad if you have
Long follow.
So you got but anyway, it's
Okay, I just put this slide up because I listen to this guy regularly as I drive around the countryside. John Kemp. So these are free podcasts, lots of good information, regenerative agriculture podcast. And so it's about using all the tools to actually optimize crop health and crop quality, nutrition. And I'll mention a couple of them as I go through.
I'll write
John
it.
Kemp, KMPF.
And the other one is CRC for Soils, based out of Lismore and Newcastle. CRC Soils.
Okay, so this book is a book that I've got that's really worthwhile to get hold of. It's Mineral Nutrition and Plant Diseases, and that's my focus. I try to aim on with everything I do. So I try and spend more money on crop nutrition and less on fungicides. And I believe that, yeah, I'm able to go that way. And I'm very confident that we'll get that way more and more. And John Kemp will actually say that he is able to do this and not get insect attack. He very confidently says that in numbers of his podcasts about making plants so healthy that they don't want to be chewed.
Did you get that? Pest management is related to plant nutrition. Duh.
So the authors of that book are Datnoff, Elmer, and Huber. Don Huber's one of the guys who's done a lot of work on the effects of glyphosate on soil biology. But yeah, done a lot of work in the nutrition space and plant disease space. So really worthwhile book. Okay, so when it comes to nutrients and what we put into a soil for a crop, it's really important to realize what crops actually remove. And a fairly typical application of nutrients, this would be in the Lockyer Valley, you'd probably put on this sort of rates of nutrients. So I've got here nitrophosphorus 600 kilos a hectare plus calcium nitrate, pot nitrate, and pot sulfate. And I worked out the units of those that would go on a crop, but I've got that in the next slide. But if you don't have adequate nutrients for a crop, and obviously the trace minerals are the things that don't get addressed with a crop product like nitrophosphorus, right? So you've got little bits of zinc, boron, iron, a little bit of magnesium, but it's widely used and it's a very successful product for general conventional horticulture, but it doesn't address all the nutrients that you need. So in a place like Stanthorpe, we're on really flogged out soils, very depleted soils, no phosphorus, growers will often also put on, say, 5 to 10 tonne per hectare of bull manure pre-crop as well to just provide the nutrition and the soil organic matter to help the system.
How expensive is that? And
What's
is
that,
that vegetables or tree crops?
You're talking nitrophosphate? Which
5 tons.
bull manure is probably delivered for $30 a tonne, so it's a couple $100. Yeah, feedlot manure.
Feedlot
Eggs
on,
works.
on
Yeah.
plus rate. And vegetables and perennials?
Yeah, well, a lot of apple growers will put that under the trees just as a supplement to nutrients, especially because of the cost of potassium. Potassium is, really expensive these days, and bull manure generally has 2.5% of potassium. Right, where are we? So with nitrophosphate and those rates of calcium nitrate, potassium nitrate, and sulfate of ammonia, those are the levels of nutrient you're actually putting in to grow a crop. And I can guarantee you that you'll have higher trace element removal than those figures. So as we pull a crop out, we are missing out on some nutrients being replaced. All right, so I've been involved with a Chinese cabbage grower this last couple of years, but yeah, this last year we put in we put on fertilizers according to our program, Hybrid Ag. I've been just working on the side with them, and when we were halfway through three-quarters of the way through the crop, we realized that we hadn't been putting on enough nutrients, and so we hadn't done the crop removals to the level of crop yield that the guy was getting. And I'd been away on holiday, so we hadn't done leaf testing to actually see what was going on. But when we did the analysis, we actually realized that these are the actual kilos of nutrient that will come off per hectare if we've got a crop of Chinese cabbage at 136 tonne per hectare. We thought the guy was going about 110 tonne of Chinese cabbage per hectare, but he grows big Chinese cabbage, and yeah, it just caught us out. But this is where you can get caught out. And this guy has said to us that he now knows that it's costing $10,000 to $12,000 a hectare to grow a Chinese cabbage crop at that size. So it's a lot of input. Now, these were so what we do with that is we send some leaf away for analysis. And so I've got 136 tonne of crop, but it actually dries back to just 12 tonne. That's why we've got the little 12 faded there. So it's actually dried matter tested. So we've taken away 88% of the weight of the crop, and this is what is actually sampled down to mineral levels. And so it actually surprised me how much potassium goes out. So you've got 480 kilograms of potassium just here, and then 322 kilos of nitrogen. It surprised me how little calcium came out, actually. Everyone in horticulture is aiming on topping up their calcium for quality, but yeah, there's not a lot of calcium that actually gets into a Chinese cabbage crop.
If you don't measure, you can't manage.
See here with boron, you've actually got 3.5 kilos of boron that's going out. So that's about 17 kilograms of boron soluble product. Okay, 21% boron. And that's a trace element. So Chinese cabbage is actually a real challenge, and lots of growers jump into it, think it's easy to grow, and then a year or two in, they're just not replacing things. These guys have a rotation with lettuce and silver beet as well. Sometimes they'll grow cauliflowers too. But yeah, you've got to know what you're actually extracting to know what to replace.
Here.
And so a couple of examples there too. A 90 tonne crop of apples will pull out only 33 kilograms of nitrogen, 90 tonne, but 275 kilos of potassium. In cherries, it's just 40 kilos of nitrogen and only 120 kilos of potassium. So one of the things I see in the Stanthelberry all the time is the growers grow a good crop, but they're just not putting on the amount of potassium, so they don't get the nice red colour. Yeah. As a company, we do a lot in apples, in stone fruit, in the south, in tree crops generally. And yeah, it's really interesting.
Can I pull you up? What is the difference between a perennial crop and an annual crop? Because we're talking hemp. So if we're going to use perennial examples, what is the analogy?
Well, perennials, they don't grow for a short period, they're year round.
Yeah. So I'm just, is there any
not annual.
formula, like you put on a lot per year, you're still putting on the nutrients requirements per year.
Yeah, at key growth stages.
And hemp can be considered as a tree crop. 7, 8 meters tall in 9 months. Sorry. I just threw that as a joke.
Yeah, so test, don't guess. So talking about crop removal, this guy, Dr. Dwayne Beck, was featured on one of John Kemp's podcasts recently, and he was just talking about this thing of extraction, and he recommended this book by Darren Coleman, wrote a book called Civilization Critical, and just so much of society has been affected by these sorts of things. And so he talks about how migration from France, people moved to the US and South America because they'd flogged out the soils where they were farming. And this actually comes back to, a friend said to me years ago that the Roman Empire grew vegetables very successfully in some areas for years and years, but then they depleted, and then they tried to restore it. They put trees back on the ground for say 30 years. I'm not sure the exact figure, to try and pull the minerals back up. They go back in, they start growing the same crops, and it lasts maybe 10 years. But again, you've got mineral depletion. So you've got to import nutrients. And this is my biggest concern. You know, I like soft agriculture. Sorry. I do like, obviously chose that name for a reason.
But, yep.
Yeah. But in organics, generally, I see guys not putting in the nutrients they need to.
Enough.
Farm by default in nutrition space.
So why did Angkor Wat see him rip, crash and burn? These civilizations, the Romans, they couldn't grow the wheat. The rice yields crashed. The meat, the system, farming systems crashed, and the civilians died. That's called history. Are we repeating that? Look at the organic matter in our soils from farming have gone from 5 to 1. How much water have we just taken out there? Was it? It's 5 megs. Think about it. And we're getting compaction, and we're losing biology.
So
it's just a vicious circle.
There are a lot of broadacre situations where soil mineral levels are just very low, and so they'll top up in crop. But yeah, the cost-effective way is foliars, just to keep the plant going. They may use fungicides because they're getting disease come earlier because they're low in nutrient levels. But yeah, what's going to happen down the track? Once you've extracted these nutrients, are they being restored? How are they being restored? And there's lots of examples of, you know, old timers farming ground. They know they start off with 1 bag of urea, for example, per acre. And then 30 years later, they're putting on 2 just to maintain the same situation. So they're burning up organic carbon, which is the store of nutrients and moisture, and that becomes depleted. So in the 1960s, 70s, in Western Queensland, CFL, who were the pre-runner to Incitec fertilizers, they, for 20 or 30 years, they were trying to get farmers to use synthetic nitrogen, urea and so on, and they weren't getting a response. And it came when that country that had been brigalow country, legume.
Brigalow tree is a legume. Why did they clear the trees?
So anyway, they just got nutrient depletion. Then they had to start using urea. And that's what happens. So I really believe organic carbon and mineral depletion is real. It is happening, and often pasture phase is the best way of rebuilding organic carbon. Have you got time for it, I guess, is the thing. All right, so I thought I should put in a couple of slides about the benefits of hemp, and you probably know this, but
thank you.
They say it's useful for phytoremediation, accumulate metals.
Can you repeat that, please? Can you repeat it? I didn't hear.
Hemp is useful for phytoremediation.
What does that mean?
So it pulls nutrients. I'll leave that one here, actually.
Who wants that one? Thank you. Please, share it with us. I'm asking the question, but I'll repeat what you say. That's what I do.
Pulling here.
So can someone answer that, please?
Pulling.
Heavy metals out of the soil and stored.
Somewhere in the plant. Sorry, Brot. cane, sugar beet, sugar cane. So keep going. To the spuds, and then hemp. All right. It's about yeah. Yes.
So
And-
what?
And hemp has a great relationship with biology. So it's not just about the hemp, it's about the hemp soil biology relationship that's doing this. Sorry, we could go
So-
on for a long time.
So what they have found in a number of studies is that hemp accumulated more heavy metals in the roots than other species. But then how do you get it? That makes it safe for what you take off the top, obviously.
Yep.
If you go into a contaminated site, you know that the plant that grows will be clean to use. But yeah, what do you then do with the roots? It stays there, doesn't it?
We are running late.
Sorry?
So you can handle that.
Yeah, well, you can say, yeah, right. Pull that off static. Yeah, well, that's good. Yeah.
Mine rehab. I've done mine rehab work with hemp. There's lots of trials happening now.
Yeah.
Cotton is the wow. Well, let's study that one. Okay.
There you go.
Thank you.
So hemp is able to remediate soils contaminated with polycyclic radioactive hydrocarbons, and also to remediate soil contaminated with a radioactive contaminant, cesium. But they said care should be taken when using seed from that situation. So it's very efficient in carbon sequestration, putting carbon back in the soil, and
What does that mean?
putting carbon back in the soil or water storage.
Thank you. And plus. It's just not about the water, I assure you. Yep. Yeah, with me interrupting. Thank you. I've had that said 100 times.
All right. This is one podcast that I'd really recommend people. I listened to this a couple of times last week. So there's this lady, Dr. Mary Lucero. She's a DNA specialist, basically. And she, on this podcast, she talks about how all species have fungal endophytes. They're very hard to identify within each species, but there are some species that have lots and some that are really good. She actually used the word promiscuous as far as you put them in a multi-species pasture mix, for example, and some will share their fungal endophytes with others. And the combination you get from having a whole range of species together is a lot more effective than having species on their own where they don't share their endophytes. So a lot of work is going into this space, I believe, and she talks about that too, about just understanding, and for Australia especially, our soils will probably respond differently to different species, but there's a lot of work I believe needs to be done to actually understand what benefit we can get from communities of different species together. So it's a really exciting podcast.
Just introduce your soils. That's a short version. Tomorrow will be the long version. Good.
20 years ago, I did an organic seedling nursery, and I used vermicast from a place at Brethren Bay where they were using municipal waste and sewage, putting it in worm beds, and I was getting that vermicast for growing the veggie seedlings that I was working on. Anyway, while I was doing that, I also got access to a guy who had vermicast from Sunshine Coast who was getting paunch material from cows at the abattoir at the Bay Desert. He was getting that composted, and then he was putting that into his worm beds. When I used that compost and compared it to the vermicast from the other site,
Wet the ground.
the response was incredible. So my seedlings like almost doubled in size in stem thickness. So that was my first lesson in biology. I thought there's something going on in those worms that I don't understand. And having listened to that podcast yesterday about fungal endophytes, I'm just really wondering now whether there's a lot more going on in a worm's gut as it feeds on the right material. And obviously, I think it's bolstering whatever biology is there. But yeah, it's really intriguing. So last summer, we did a trial with vermicast for worms down under in Brisbane. And we compared two different vermicast types, so we did seedlings. A really key part with doing this is using only 13% of vermicast in the mix. If you use more than 13%, the seedlings actually go backwards. And to me, that was a sign that there's too much biology for the plant to access. And so on a tomato crop at Sandthorpe last year, we did these seedlings, 13% vermicast with paunch material vermicast and another one. And we got the best result again with the paunch material vermicast. We also, at planting, we drenched the seedlings with a bacillus inoculant from Hybrid Ag, and we planted those. And compared to the control, we had, after 6 weeks, we had double the number of fruit set. So it was really stood out to us, obviously. And the grower is this year going to do 10,000 seedlings that way, and we'll do 10,000 control, and we'll see if we can't get a much better yield. And we'll be putting in more nutrition too to try and match the system. But yeah, I really think there's a lot more going on in worm guts than, well, any of us understand.
Is there another speaker talking on that? Yeah, worm cast somebody, the truck, the car at the front.
How do I go?
Thank you.
How do I go back? Can you take two back? So I've got a slide up here by Arden Anderson. A number of years after Hybrid Ag started, the company's been going about 22 years, but in 2006, he had this slide at the presentation that he gave to Hybrid Ag. And it's really just addressing the comments that a lot of organic growers think that they can just grow by default, basically, and just not remineralize. But he says, not to worry, there's plenty of mineral in all ag soil. So just add biology and all your problems will be solved. So it's true if you have a naturally fully mineralized soil, and not many do, if any. And if you've already executed the Albrecht system and you're satisfied with mediocrity. So that's my biggest bugbear with organics, that often they just think it can just happen on its own without some help along the way. All right. So about 20 years ago, I was working with an eco-fertilizer product, and I came across Dr. Albert Rivera from South Australian Research Development Institute. And he made this statement to me that I've never forgotten. So soil microbes synthesize organic compounds to fix vitamins in food.
Wow.
And so much is going on in the soil that we don't understand. But this is where my question comes up about hydroponics. Now, lots of people are eating hydroponic food, but it's nutrient and water. And no one that I'm aware of has studied to see what's actually happening in terms of vitamins, antioxidants, and so on for that produce. So I really believe it needs to be looked at. And I think, there's so much hydroponics happening because it's water efficient, as if that's the holy grail. But food quality should be, in my understanding.
I'm going to interrupt. The other one is you don't feed the crops anymore. You feed the bugs in the soil that are feeding the crops. Does that make sense? Sorry. I just got a few one-liners. I'm a slow learner and I like one-liners.
So this is just a post from John Kemp years ago with Acres in the USA, just talking about the importance of chemistry, not just of chemistry, but biology. And yeah, in my understanding, nutrition is the foundation for what we do, and then the biology takes things to the next level.
Okay. Yeah.
Just a few slides from Adam Wilson. So Adam went to Romania and did a project with his mate Greg Painter, and this is on the Danube. So this is a really big site. So these are a number of soil types. This one in the middle, this one here is the most fertile of these, very, very fertile. So same sort of soils as they have in Ukraine that, we hear about. Australia doesn't have any soils of that sort of quality. This one on the left is a sandy soil, but the really important point about this slide is that we need to know what our soil type is so we can manage it accordingly. People who don't, Adam said to me that this guy actually didn't want them to do these soil profiles. He just thought, you can see everything from the top, just take the top 15, but you need to understand what is happening down deep, and even your soil's ability to percolate and move moisture back up and down and so on. So high organic matter soils provide nitrogen. And out of 165 soil tests, he said the guys who had high soil carbon nitrogen didn't have high soil carbon didn't have issues with nitrogen availability. And it shows the importance of the pasture rotation if you can do that. And this, in this situation with the cows there, these guys had at least 35 varieties of pasture species. They were milking 20 litres a day with no grain, no supplementary feeding, and that was ongoing. So there's some real benefit in having multiple species. So I talk to farmers, they say, oh, put in a cover crop and they might have 2 or 3 species as if that's a cover crop. But, we really should be looking much greater diversity than that in a species. Compost is important for all the benefits that probably Stuart will tell us. So in Western Queensland, Adam had done this work where both farmers side by side had 90 millimetres of rainfall. The conventional guy was pulling 2 tonnes to the hectare with 10% protein off his wheat, and side by side with the compost with minerals that added in, they were achieving 2.5 tonne and 14.6% protein. And so when I got to know Adam about 20 years ago, I was doing work with him in the Bundaberg area, and he was doing this work with a aloe vera grower. And this was putting on about 10, he couldn't tell me whether it's 10 or 15 tonnes a hectare of mineral enriched compost, but in those days it wouldn't have been more than $100 per tonne delivered. And they had moved their production, which is world's best practice, 125 tonne per hectare, and they went to 294 tonne per hectare with much better quality. And it really staggers me sometimes why farmers don't pay more attention to that. Yeah, the numbers did say something. So this is what Adam does. I believe this is what Stuart does too. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, Andrew. Oh, Q&A?
I just YouTube it, yeah. So John Kemp's podcast.
John Kemp.
And put in advancing eco-agriculture if you need to.
The other one is CRC Soils. I hit it yesterday and I had Rachel Ward from Nambucca, film producer, doing beautiful soils regen on all these topics. Anything else? Thank you.
All good?
I thought you were going to say something. I was looking at you.
Use the lactose bacillus inoculum to develop, invigorate the composting process, but it also controls odor. So we've got strung up and composting site. So a guy called Jerry Gillespie had called rocks, turning organics to water to that. Now, the big take home message for us is that and the ones that are needed.
Yeah, thank you.
I think we're going to find some time tomorrow, if you all agree with me, for Kim to have a chat, if we agree, rather than just the Q&A. We'll see how we go. I was only up till 3:30 this morning waiting for you to arrive. Next one. Thanks, Andrew. If you want drinks, we're running late. You can walk out, stretch your legs. The toilets are up here. The food's here. It's ready to go. Do not hesitate to leave the building, but we are going to still go on. Please do it quietly. We're not having morning tea. You're supposed to have that at 10 o'clock. Sorry. If you didn't read the small print. Well, it wasn't a break. I just said if you want to, we can do it while we're going, but we're going to have a break. Sorry. I'm outnumbered. Right? Yep. Yep. I will come back in. Yep. We're not having lunchtime. Absolutely. Open everything up. This is an informal break.
No, we just put it in there. Move it in there.
Short version?
Yeah.
Thanks, Graham.
Yeah, it would be quick.
Just introduce what you're doing at Stews, the background for the field trip. Focus on that, and then we'll get into the down the rabbit hole tomorrow.
Yeah, we just moved it across a few moments ago.
You know how we did it? I thought you said you controlled it all along. You didn't teach me how to control it.
Maybe go to the other one.
This is the USB
Maybe two.
two at the head group. No, this is a different. This is a different computer to Logan's. If you emailed it or
No. Oh, don't worry.
Flash drive.
I've got the flash drive. Yeah. Yeah, I'll give you the flash drive.
awesome.
It's in the day two. It's in the day two. I've just heard. Yeah.
Man, works.
Yeah.
Oh, there we
Yeah.
go.
Now, Pete, PowerPoint will do. Yeah.
All right, you've got your microphone. I'll give you that back.
Now, got a pointer.
That.
All right. Yep.
a crop to activate the biology if you haven't got your biology activated. And that's where I think there's a place for it. You can use molasses, you can use other things for that. I've gone into and we've analysed and I've got some analysis I'll talk about this afternoon from Stuart's paddocks there. I went in there probably 10 years ago into a paddock where Stuart hadn't put fertilisers for 20 years. And I went, oh, this is giving me a nice baseline on how to make your soils deficient and how to neglect your soils. But the problem is Stuart's been putting fertilisers on all the time, plus compost teas. And that was one of the most perfect analysis I'd seen. The carbon was way up, all your nutrients were balanced, and the whole thing bloody looked good. So it's not mining the soils if you manage your soils and you manage your carbon. So if you look after all this, I talk a lot about total nutrients, and that's really, I think, a buffer where a lot of nutrients you're putting on or have put on is locked up. The thing that unlocks that is your soil biology, and I think that's the amazing part with where we can actually activate our soils and make sure them working for us, but also looking after our environment. So Elaine Ingham caught on to one thing I said about totals, saying every soil in the world has enough nutrients to grow any crop. She's gone a bit mad on that, and I keep pulling up on it. We really need to put nutrients back. The totals are a good backup and a good store of nutrients, but you've got to keep stocking nutrients back, and compost and other organic fertilizer or organic products are fantastic in putting that back. I'm not going to talk. I'll talk tomorrow on a lot of this. Industrial farming, it's done its purpose, but really it has neglected our soil. Synthetic fertilizers have a place in some instances, and even pesticides and herbicides. Where you have to put them on, that's better than a farmer going broke and losing their property. You need to use it where you need to use it. And even traditional fertilizers, if you need it and you've got a real severe deficiencies, you're going to need to use it. You just got to keep managing your nutrition and your carbon. This cycle here, we all know it, nutrient cycling. I put this down as nutrient cycling. It's the whole trophic food web, and it's all releasing nutrients all along the way. I won't talk about that yet. I'm going to talk about all nutrients tomorrow, and their part they play in soil biology, and the biology part that is part of all this nutrient management. Little bit, I'll go into why monitor soils and plants. It's really just to manage your soils, manage your carbon, and seeing what nutrients are lacking. Here I have hemp guidelines. So when you do leaf monitoring, you can actually look at whether it's in acceptable or high or low ranges of nutrients.
Where did you get them from? I did get them from one of the big companies in Germany. Did you got your?
This was actually, no, this is from CSIRO guidelines. There's some hemp guidelines there.
So people have it to Toowoomba that does soil testing that are owned by Germany.
Soil.
Yeah, they've got a huge database of hemp.
Yeah.
For 50 years of hemp growing in Europe.
So I'll need to compare them to these guidelines. If you can give me those, I'll compare them, but this will be on your slide. So we've only got nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, magnesium, copper, zinc, manganese, and boron in there as guidelines in your leaf.
You're not sure, you don't think they borrowed that from hops or something similar? I'm not aware of anybody doing this business.
Yeah. It's called Indian hemp or Kanaf, so maybe they got it from Kanaf. So I'm not sure, but it's one of the ones in our database. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, we look for a B&B, there's nothing existed anywhere.
Well, it'd be good to compare it to those other guidelines. Like I said, I talk about total nutrients. We test for that as one of our options. I talk about X-ray fluorescence. You've got to have aerated soils. 44 to 49% of soil is oxygen. If you keep driving a tractor around and keep compacting it, you're destroying your soils. There's a lot of issues there. I'll go through a little bit on what our base is made up of, our basalt, crust, and all the rest. And really then I'll start moving into why we're testing soils. I'll talk about the carbon initiative, carbon farming. We do a lot of that testing at Southern Cross University. Talk about different soil structures, soil types, which we've mentioned earlier today. Whether you've got a clay loam, or a sandy loam soil. And then tomorrow I'll start going on to these results. We've got a few soil results here from Stuart's farm, and Mara seeds, and 2 different paddocks there I'll talk about this afternoon. I've got hard copies of those. That's the analysis, so it's quite comprehensive. You can see there, you're going right through your soluble nutrients, your exchangeable nutrients, NP, calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium, and then through your micronutrients through to your carbon. And these carbon's running in these paddocks about 3.1 to 3.2%, nitrogen 0.26%, 2,600 parts per million or milligrams per kilogram. And they're a clay and a clay loam for those 2 soils. And then I'll go through a little bit just to finish today. Healthy soils, this is what it's all about. We run a Regen Ag course at Southern Cross University. It's very popular, fantastic course, and the students are really enjoying it, the ones I've spoken to. It's still got a long, the only one in the world. Healthy soils sustain biological agriculture. That's what we want soils for. We've just lost that fact that we need to have the biology in there to create the health of our foods and create the health of ourselves. Graham Sate's fantastic presenter on that, talking about the relationship.
Who's Graham Sate?
Graham Sate's Nutritech.
Yandina?
Yandina. And if you want to go to one of his talks, you'll just get absorbed into his passion for what it's all about. They store and cycle nutrients. We've talked about that. We've talked about decompose organic matter. If you want to know if you've got soil biology in your paddock or your system, put down organic matter and it'll sit there looking at you. There's a bloke in Armidale, I can't think of his name just at the moment, and Oliver. And he's basically got a program where he puts out cotton undies. You bury it down 8 centimetres.
Tell the story.
I love it. And puts down the cotton undies, you put it in there for 6 weeks and you pull them out and you've got a decay level to work out your microbial activity. And what it is, he's actually calibrated it. So he's got all different levels of organic matter or microbes in the soil. And depending on the level of decay of the cotton in the cotton undies, you can work out what level of microbes you've got, because he's got about 100 pairs just with different level of decay. So you can calibrate your cotton undies to your microbial level in your soil. And that's the cheapest microbial test you'll do. They are generally bonds. They're a nice one.
Hemp, why not hemp? They wouldn't eat the hemp. It wouldn't rot.
Yeah, that's so University Armidale, Oliver Knox, Knox, and how I went for a big tour around Australia last year. Actually, we went to Alice Springs, Darwin, and all the rest, looking at soil carbon, looking at farming, and all the rest. not without holes in them. So a healthy soil inactivates toxic, binds all the toxic chemicals, which is great. The organic carbon in the compost, and a healthy soil suppresses pathogens, which is very important, and protects water quality, environmental health. If you've got really good percolating soil, you won't have a dam or rivers or reefs full of nutrients, because they're really looking after the environment.
Farmers they don't want this loss. They don't want the catchment to be running off nutrients.
It's just a waste.
It's a waste of money. Blue-green algae. It's all their dollars in the bin, in the lake.
I've done many tours in New Zealand, and their pristine environment is horrific. Their beautiful lakes are actually blue-green, and their nutrient management is very poor. They're trying to manage it.
Dairies.
Yeah, dairies with urea. And that's why I'm not a big fan of urea. I know urea can be mixed with organic compounds, which is great to bind it up, to stop it, but 50% of what you put on as urea is lost in the atmosphere by volatilization. So look, I can go in for hours and hours, and I'll talk tomorrow for hopefully just half an hour. I'll talk about compost, the importance, the benefits of compost, and then I'll talk about, we've got a bit of interpretive sheet so you can interpret your own soil test, because we're totally independent of fertilizer companies. We're totally just there to support farmers, support research. We've got fantastic researchers, as has been mentioned, at Southern Cross University. There's a lot of other universities, and Soil Care, I'm a committee member there. So Soil Care is a great group.
Soil Care?
Soil Care Inc. Is a group of really farmers on the North Coast. They have a website, very cheap life membership, and they give a lot of information. We hold workshops on soil dung beetles. We've got a new soil dung beetle at Southern Cross University expert, Nigel Andrew, who's a dung beetle expert, and they're a whole nother story. And look, there's a million stories I can talk about because I've been at the university for 30 years. And it's a great topic to be part of. Great to be part of this. And I think I can finish there just for today. Unless you're here tomorrow and I'll rave a bit more. Happy for questions, but Stuart is what this is all about, to see the farm today.
Yeah. Any questions, please? Stu, does Graham need to introduce your soils, or you're going to do that? Or we're going to do it in the field? In the field where the soil is, you've got the test.
Yeah, look, you know, the soils here are low rainfall, so they're really
Low?
hard. Well, 300 to 400 millimeters a year.
Luxury.
It's all perspective, isn't it? And you learn about perspectives. But they've got very good soils and deep soils. We always used to do a trench down to 2 meters, and we'd see root activity down to 2 meters. So was quite phenomenal. Nutrient management, you've got the roots accessing water and nutrients from that depth, which is quite phenomenal. So we're always encouraging depth analysis to see what nutrients and what activity you've got there, but they're quite good soils down deep, but they've been looked after. With the compost tea and the compost, they've been healthy soils, and you'll see them as healthy soils when you go out there. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see him in the field. We'll see him in the field, and we'll see him back here tomorrow. Any questions? Anyone online?
That's forward.
We're good. Thanks, Stu.
You see that? This is a fairly long slideshow, which I'll jump a lot of it quickly because of time. But what it is more a journey of where we've been over a period of time. And it's in 3 sections. It's where we came from, where we are today, and where we think we're going in the future. Now, that's not everything, but more, I guess you might say, we're a practical demonstration of nearly everything we've done is relying on has to make money, and if it doesn't make money, you go another way. And I guess my wife Katina's here, and Shane. It relies on, we've got 37 people that work in the outfit, and it's all relying on different people to doing different things, but it's about profitable agriculture is the best way of putting it. And that'll come out in things like why we've been in the hemp industry for a while. That's where we came from. And the reason I've got most of these slides up here, so you don't have to look at me, you look at that. But right, that's where we came from. That's the original farming land where we are. I'm going to take you to there and show you that, because there's a few things that where we started, and those green paddocks there you can see where Adam Wilson first came to many years ago, and he was a great guy, and I'm very pleased to see Graham mention Elaine Ingham. I think it was a turning point for us in that we understood what we were aiming for, and knowing how biology works, and how one benefits the other, and so on and so on. And we did a lot of her courses, and they were really spot on. For where we were. Those days, organic agriculture, which I'll explain why we did that. They jump around a little bit here. That's conventional to organic, and that's in 94 to 97. And that's using compost and compost teas. Same thing with that soy, but looking at the soils there, we had big cracks in the soil. We had, it was low in organic matter, whatever, through our farming programs. And we didn't have much choice but to look at a different way to farm. Otherwise we wouldn't have been here. Different way to That's just crops that we've done, for probably, I think we grew the second paddock of soybean ever grown on the North Coast. That's a long time back. These days, it's very much part of where we are in our crop rotations. And the reason I say that there is we basically do a 5-year cropping program, which is double cropped every year. That's with wheat mainly. We do throw a little bit of maize in at times on the lower country, on the river country. And we grow soy in the summer. And I'll explain it a bit later, but that's why we searched for hemp 10 years ago, because we needed to change our biota. And that was one way of doing it. And then that journey has been touched here briefly by people, but I'll tell our version of the story as we go along. You can see that soy. Obviously, we were farming row cropping on hills. Prior to that, we actually had the fellow that owned that piece of country there it was all covered in contour banks because the soil, we actually ploughed them out.
I'm going to pulse you up there. Just hear what he said. Soil contour in all the contour banks. We talked about Adam Wilson's rehydration paper. Stewie's taken them out. Why?
We took them out because we didn't need them. You know, I mean, we could get, work straight over the country and it didn't disappear down the gully. Yeah.
The rain wasn't running off anymore. It was going in. Duh. Sorry.
You're right. So that's just another form of what we do in the 5-year rotation. Following that, not so much on our Soteria-based country, and the reason we use Soterias is because the wallabies and kangaroos don't like them, and we tend to sort of, we've got things like our Rhodes grasses, they foul them, and the animals won't go on. So that's been part. We started in seed farming many years ago. Our main markets were in the Middle East with Rhodes grasses, and we used to we were supplying the major part into Saudi and UAE. And I think at that stage, we were doing also work with a lot of native things like carpet grass in paspalum, which we call Dallas grass. We'd send that to the States and they loved it. And it was sort of, but it was part of what we were doing. But what forced us, in a minute you'll see it, what forced us to change from what we were doing, that's running wheat on the hills. And you'll visit that paddock today. I'll explain it to you a little bit later what that. But mainly the 5-year rotation is to put the things like Rhodes grass, which you can handle, and you can get rid of the seed and all that sort of stuff. And it also is a valuable thing for our livestock side. So it's a bit of changing of the biota, I call it. I don't know whether that's the correct way to say it, but that's what we do. I just think best to there, isn't it? That's things like our Rhodes grasses, which are harvested and
For seed.
for seed.
It is grazed for cattle, but it is harvested for seed to sell for replanting, pasture seed.
And in most cases, the tailings are baled up, not to sell as a rule, but mainly to go back into our composting side as a starter. So we're recycling all the time. But, we run a couple of different cultivars. You'll see one new one there we've got at the moment, and it's well worth looking at. But that's the lower river country there, and they're 90 centimetre rows. They're big. But the reason of that size is because we can get down through them and mound once the plants start coming up. We rely on plant population in the rows and also being able to inter-row cultivate is a big win.
This is dry land. How many mils summer rainfall?
Oh, we're
400
50 inch, whatever that is.
total
1,000 mil.
50 inch for the growing season.
No, that's the year.
Yeah. So we'll talk about seasonal rainfall later. 1250.
Yeah, seasonal rain's a strange name here at the moment. Our rain comes from everywhere. One time it was always cyclones and storms in September, but these days it's likely to come from anywhere. I see some old dates here. They're not quite as old as me, but close to it. What also we run a beef herd, which is a 3-way herd, and that's we run just under 1,000 cows, and there we market as Mara organic beef. Last 2 years we haven't, because crazy prices were out there, and we took those, and but it's sure level itself out just now. But we run a Hereford herd and we run a F1 herd, which is Brahman Hereford cross. I swapped that with my brother. And then we join them back to Angus, which just gives us a quarterbred, as we call it. And they're probably the better mother in a lot of ways. But they're all terminal. They go back through and you'll see some of them in what it's not a feedlot. They've got access to feeders and hay, but it's technically isn't, and it isn't, it is. You'll see that a bit later on. But beef's been always with us. And, you know, it's part of our management side of things. But I'll explain that a little further in where we're actually going with a few different things. When we first started away from where we were back 30 years ago, we actually were looking for ways to, you might say, be different. And it was obvious if you look at read the books and everything that biochar had this slide should be a little bit later, but it's not. But anyway, what we did, we had a number of cracks at it. You'll see today there a plant that's sucked up a lot of money, but it's got a lot of uses too but I'll explain that in a little while. But biochar, I'll be frank with you, we don't do anything unless it's got biochar in it. Nothing. So, and the benefits, I can explain that to everyone very simply. There's some of them there, that's in animal feeds, fertilizer and compost, mainly for helping us do our granulation and things like that. Litter base, we've done a bit of that with piggeries where they've been in trouble with the EPA, and we've been able to put that into the igloos, and the deal is we put the biochar in there up to 10%, but we get it back again because we then take the pig manure back out. We get rid of all the odor, don't have any dead pigs or anything of the like. And it's a no-brainer. The syngas off our new plant there, that's for power generation. You'll see it's a 711 kilowatt power generator. Drying, obviously, for grain. CO2, we haven't done that yet, but we will be doing that into silo fumigation and indoor growing. Hydrogen is a future sale item where we capture that. And the plant we're building there or built there is it's world class. There's nothing like it anywhere that's got all the features, and that's important when you do it making biochar because it has a fixed costs of what you start with. If there's 5 parts go in, you'll get 1 part back out. So there's freight, there's all those sorts of things that, but it's just another thing. As far as uses, look, there's plenty of uses for where you are with biochar, cement, bitumen roads. I could sell all the biochar we ever produced back into the steel industry now without replacing coke. But that's got limitations in cost, and there is a lot of regulations coming in the through
Just
AVA.
slow down this. You're going on a run here. He said green steel. He said green cement. Addressing carbon. It's a whole new world out there, and Stu's leading the way. Think about it. Thanks.
Oh, well, don't know about that. Hope I'm not. Hey? Oh no, that's how we initially started. We had rotary hearths. We built them. We managed to destroy most of them through no temperature control. And the other thing. In those days, EPA were saying, well, where's your data on emissions? And you've got to be very mindful of that if you go into that area, because they're right on the case these days. And the new plant, we've got remote access, so it can be dialed into any one time of the day and clears the deck. So, but I know I'm throwing a lot of things at you, but you'll see a lot of this in the field as we go.
Yeah.
That's a little gimmick we had when we first started, and we were boxing up biochar and called it cha-cha-cha. But it's actually gone out of fashion now because, and excuse me, I'm not racist or anything, but we got picked up by the authorities and said, you can't have a lady that colour being
Related to cha.
so it's being, anyway, so we had to rethink all that. And if we put a white lady on there in a red dress there, it wouldn't look real good, would it, in the background? So it's, anyway, that's just.
So government, all right, here he is trying to save the world and he's got EPA on his back. Give us a break. Government, regulations. We're going to Canberra next week. Who's coming with me? Monday.
Good luck.
Sorry. Sorry.
Good luck. We did a lot of work with biochar in improving where we were. We've paid a lot of money to research areas, that's at CQU and Rockhampton. And it's important that you do have the data, and not only for anybody else, but for ourselves. But we've used that, and that relates to all the things we do these days in growing, like, you know, but there's the uses we've got for biochar in the fertiliser and the compost area. Most of these, if you look on that table on that side there, nearly all the things we do there, and they're all related, not to being selling items. They're there to display that they actually do work and they're in the field. So you mentioned, oops, it's taken off on me.
So you will see all this on the table, take it home. You will see it working and living in the field this afternoon.
I won't spend any time on that because we'll see that anyway. Yeah. Talking about doing those tests a minute ago with the undies, that's actually what's happening there with that fellow. He was a Dutchman, a French, sorry, and he came and did those tests many years ago on varying biochar in compost, and his name was Vincent. And we kept telling him that all those Vincent de Paul, they were all named after him. He didn't believe us. But the data that came out of that was pretty encouraging. Yeah.
Did he know what he was doing, or you were just going?
No, well, he was based in CQU and Rockhampton.
CQ,
yeah. There you are. That's biochar that's being thrown back in. Pretty simple. We don't do that all the time. But it's when we can afford it. This next plant will give us that opportunity to do the rates we want, because we can put the larger biochar, you might say chips, and they'll do because the big thing is that you save, that'll absorb 5 times its own weight in moisture and hold it. And the big thing about it is that it's a home for biology.
Yes.
Which I'll show you later in the tanks, which we produce biology. That can be spread out there if we wish to.
What percentage of farm is generating their own source?
That's a bit of a long question. In that we bought. No, you'll see it. We purchased a lot of the MIS schemes around here, or the failed plantations, but that's part of the story of where we've come from. In that, you know, the idea was correct, but the wrong species were planted, never maintained properly, as in thinnings and so on and so on. And so we've got a percentage of that country, which, and you'll see it later here, where it's going under a fully blown carbon project, where we actually can get credits back on those, hopefully, in not too far away. Yeah, well, it is, but you know, you'll see some of the timber's all right that's on there, some of it's hopeless. Most of it's hopeless.
Failed farm forestry plantations. They weren't adapted to the soil. Wonder why? What's that got to do with biology?
Well, a lot of the problem was when they planted them too. It was scandalous that they used 10 times the rate in everything that you should, like heavy rates of chemical that basically zonked the soil, and yep. Well, it was, but the poor old investor didn't get a thing out of it when it went under. So that's hemp production. Now, we've been growing hemp for well over 10 years and never very well. I'm telling you that now.
Why is that?
Well, the main reason is there's not a cultivar that actually works.
For you.
Yep.
For you.
Because where we are is most of these here are, I think that's Futura, which is a French variety.
Yep.
We tried many, all of them. And, you know, getting yields, if you're talking, and what I'm talking about here, I'm talking about food production or grain, not the CBD and not the
Not the stem,
medical.
not the
No.
leaf, not the stubble, just the grain yield of the grain crop for food and oil.
So that, you know, I think two things. One is within those particular, I'll call them varieties, or call them whatever you like. As you know, 50% are male. And the others were plants that were all over the place. You know, they should have been narrowed down and selected down to either a tall plant or a short plant. Our aim is where I am in the process we're in at the moment is getting plants that, just like you were harvesting wheat or sorghum, that height plant, not looking at the biomass, but the biomass is still important. I'll explain that as we go forward. So this is more to show that the mistakes we've made, and I think we're well on the way to solving a lot of those problems, but it's no cheap exercise, I'm telling you now. That's back in 22. In fact, you can look at some of those slides on the side over there, you'll see a pretty good looking hemp crop. We ploughed all that in because there was nothing there.
Nothing in it.
That's
Look
right.
good.
Yeah, nothing.
Nothing.
And unfortunately, people, when they sell products, if they can sell them, they're selling it to make money and they don't really tell the truth. I'll be honest with you. Simple as that.
You put the header in, it wasn't insects, it's just the variety, the
Dude.
environment, the drought, the flood.
I'd say more males than females because, as you know, the poor old male does his job and then he dies.
Males are useless.
So, hang on, you women, you can't. Women not allowed to talk.
Males are okay for fibre, but if you're getting grain, there's nothing on them, they're useless. You only need 1% male, you don't need 50.
Well,
Holland.
yeah, in
We
some
can
of
argue that.
well, we can. In some of the work, depends on what you're in the field. It's not easy to feminise and that, but so we're still concentrating on what you can do by planting it like a wheat crop or a sorghum crop, manage it, harvest it, put it in the site, use the same machines as what you would for harvesting those crops. That hasn't always worked. We run class headers. We've got 3 class headers. We don't even use them in the hemp because the drum speeds and whatever, we can do a lot better with the old model John Deere's. So we use a contractor that comes in and does that.
Craig?
Yeah. Mm.
Sorry, I interrupted. Craig, he's a Wilkinson, he's a local, got 8 headers, Johnny's. He went into a hemp crop, he'd never harvested it before, down the road here. He got the best sample of grain I've ever seen in my life. People say it's hard. He did it in his sleep. You just got to get the right header and the right guy. End of story. A green one.
Oh, I forget I don't know what model it
A
was.
green
It's
one.
one of the very old models anyway. Yeah, I can find that out. So that was the next step here of where do we go? Now, I'll tell you a bit of story here. And we employed a lot of people. I'm not saying where they were from or whatever. And we spent a lot of money. And every one of them was an expert. And they were good at a lot of things that we didn't want them to be good at. And we finished up, we spent 2 years and wasted millions of dollars and never got a thing out of it. But we had a seed bank eventually when I decided we'd clean the show up. And we had a choice at that stage whether we should just bury the seed and get on with life or whether we'd try and chase it further. But the benefits we could see in things like wherever you plant hemp, you can always grow anything behind it.
Can you catalog that? Has anyone measured that? I'm after that.
My eyes
Following crops.
My eyes tell me.
We all know that. I
Yeah.
just wanted somebody to give me a number.
Well, it's something which I guess people haven't needed to do that. you know, yeah. But it does, it's certainly, there are, the disabilities are there too, and you've spoken about all those here just a while ago, but that'll become evident. So what we did, we bolted that program and then found a good grower, and I won't mention names because it's not fair. And we grew in a nursery, we grew indoors, and we grew under shade cloth. So we then moved to 7 sites in our land. We've got around about 8,500 acres of country, so we could get them far enough away that they weren't going to cross-pollinate and so on and so on.
5 kilometres cross-pollinate.
So it started us on this journey, and where our journey is today, I'll show you that more in. Well, we wanted to prove ourselves how, well, once we went from, so mind you, this is all based around plant selection. Like in those areas there, everything was just basically mixed up. So what we've done, we've had to go back and do plant selection, which is down to whether it be frost tolerant, whether it be, excuse me, flinching, I had to crook back. And we came up with selections that now we're up to roundabout in, not proven, we've got one more grow to go to prove that we can do it continuously, but we've taken that 400 kg a hectare up to 1.5 to 2 tonne to the hectare. So that's a huge number that means you can plant it and make some money and someone will want to buy it. So, but the other selection side of it is, obviously, we grow all this under an experimental license, a scientific license, sorry. And that means we're limited to what we can do with those products at this point. But you know, that'll be explained tomorrow when you hear the deep client people there anyway. So that's just one that came through, that's MC6, and it's the base of where we are. And that's what we were after. You can read that. They're robust, highly branched, high flower to leaf, dense flowers, broad leaves, and varying colours. And we've found things like purple, it seems to be a better plant. But there is the next phase to where we are with the CBD levels as well, where they can go into that in time to come. So that's important that we're looking at the CBD levels. But bearing in mind, it's all about low THC plants.
Yep.
So we did indoor growing under lights. Good idea, but it's darn expensive. You know, like you've got, you know, and one of the biggest problems you've got is, I believe, is people. In that if they know what they do after hours might be different to what they do in hours, right? And you've only got to have someone that carts a piece of pollen in there, and you can destroy all your work in one day. Yeah. So it's got to be very, very.
We're not going to visit this facility. Do you understand why? Not because you're going to steal it, because
there's nothing much there. Well, there's nothing much there this time of the year. Only just replanted. That's under 10 cover. You will see the covers and whatever. They're about 4 hectares in them. That's MC4.
What does that stand?
Nothing. That's why we put it there.
Who said?
No, well, I can tell you a story. It is a little bit to do with the name Mara, but when we were, my brother-in-law, we were back years ago, and the word Mara seeds doesn't come from marijuana either. It comes from one afternoon, we were having a beer after work, and he had the kids coming up in age, and I said, what are we going to do? We'd better form a company here or something. And so he said, we formed a partnership, and I said, well, I don't want to call Larson. And he said, I don't want to call Alan. I said, right, what do we do? He said, we'll take the middle out of Colmar Creek. And that's where we live. So that's where it came from, out of there. But all my mates said, hello, he's going bushy, this fella. He's gone to marijuana. That's his work. But anyway, that's many years ago. That's the different type of growing. And I'll be frank with you and say now, and someone mentioned it earlier, but the actual, what do I call it? the bed production, which is there.
Yep.
That gives us the greatest result we do.
Absolutely.
So it's mounded and irrigated over the top and on the ground as well. So
Are you spraying and flooding or just spraying?
both. We
Wow.
can do either.
Wow.
So that's indoors. That was more growing plants and whatever. Obviously, some of this now is in the next stage of our growing. We're doing clones and things like that, and feminizing and so on. So, but that's not what I want to talk about here. That's the next phase of where we are in what we're doing in the hemp business. It's called genetics, Mara genetics these days, in the actual selection and breeding program. We are doing it for CBD production, and I won't give you the numbers, but they're very, very high because they're not proven yet. I'm a great one in saying you can say something, but unless you've dead set got it right and it's out there, you don't talk about it. So, but it's same sort of thing, low THC, dense flowers. In colour has been a thing that we've found that the purples, just seem to be a lot stronger plant. Purple everything.
Everything. The more the merrier.
Is it cost effective to raise your
That does happen, yeah, in there, but generally we don't. Even in those road areas there, we run a mower through there and bale it and get rid of the whatever's there anyway.
And do you compost?
No, but a lot of it's, we have done that, but our future is that it into biochar is where it's,
Right.
yeah.
Can I ask another question? I've got it.
You're right, I'll remember. So that's where we are today. We call these soft agri group. There's Mara Seeds, there's soft agriculture, which obviously a lot of those tables over there are about that, and Mara Investment Corp, which I can't see it myself, but as I've said, we do cropping, livestock, hemp breeding, seed production, and we have done a little bit of contract growing of things at times. Our soft feed side, which Shane's in charge of over there, is stock feed, compost production. We do have an interest in a phosphate business or a phosphate mine. I'll explain that when we have a look at the pile up there and see it, but biochar production there, and we've got pelleting and granulation facilities. In MIC, that's future is in perfecting the hemp plant right up to where it can be used in a lot of other things as well. So it's there. It's a drying, a processing, extraction. We do some superfood work through there, which comes out of Kununurra to where we are here. And we take the quinoa and chia, take the saponin off the quinoa, and you'll see that over there in a little packet. That's the future for a safe insecticide that will, as you know, the reason it's on the plant is so the birds and the insects won't touch it. And the insects don't like it. So we're developing a little thing with that as we go along. That's a little bit trying to put it to Australia. That's what it is.
Wait, now you know why we're in how do you pronounce it?
Oh, he's a local.
Malango.
We can usually tell where people come from, how they say it.
So
No.
there's going to be a lot of questions. We're going to show you this in the field. We're still going.
Yep. Haven't started yet.
I wanted you to finish.
No, I'm not done yet. As I said, I've repeated myself here. Growing the seed bank. We're doing IP and PBR work on a couple of those varieties, which they're actually looking like being out there in front. I'm not mentioning names or anything there because it hasn't happened yet. But it's certainly, it's not for the faint-hearted. We spend about 400 grand a year on that just to even keep those cultivars and that going forward. So but still say by the time I get to the end of this, you'll think I'm wearing a hemp hat somewhere, but I'm not. It's a big part of where we are. Where we're going, we're using biochar methane there, which you'll see those facilities. We've put those in to capture the methane in livestock. Now, benchtop work, I'll show you in a minute what it's come up with. But the base plant is hemp. And the other, we don't tell anyone because it's an IP thing at the moment. And until we get that, but they're very safe inputs. And I'll show you the results as we go. That's looking over the top of the methane facilities. And there's some of the trial paddocks, which you'll see there. They're bays, which we feed the couple hundred heifers there at the moment. We're feeding them on a control ration, so they're all the same. The soil's all the same. The plant species are the same, and you'll see them as we go through it anyway. And we want to prove that that actually works, and we can do that beneficially and financially, where you can lock those animals up in an institution, and they'll treat one animal, but one animal is different to the other 20 or 30. So it's about animals, animal type. We use that's the feeding trials, or what they're in the measure.
Who's doing the measurements, Stuart?
I'll explain that in a minute. We started off doing ruminant trials at Queensland Uni, and then we went to Novarim when we thought we had a result. And you can see what I'm saying there. It's indicating 85. It's actually higher than that. But we've said 85, and a productivity of 8 to 10% in ruminants is possible. So it's not hard to work it out if you can get the cost of that down, that people can actually afford to do it. They don't need carbon credits. They can make just money out of production by locking up that methane. And that's what we're about at the moment. But we are carbon minded, don't worry about that. It's to test different feeds and all those sorts of things, but it's about don't empty the pocket out. So the chambers, the SCU are one of the postgraduates is doing the work on the measuring. We have, you can see their names and that all there, and there's others to be appointed. We're consulted with a chemical and processing engineer in what we're doing there in that area, and also the nutritionist and animal scientist. So it's more, but it doesn't mean a thing if you're looking at the carbon world, unless you've got 3 independent bodies.
Wow.
And that's something, rather than go and spend a lot of money on something and then it fail, what we want to be sure is that we can put it into the field and we know it's going to work. So there, and that the soft biochar methane is put into a granule. You'll see granules over there. That the reason for that is because of dust suppression, mainly, and also handling. But the fact that when you're doing granules, you can add back a lot of different things, whether it be biology, whether it be nutrients, all that. Yeah. So I just threw that in because we're not going to get down to see where that is. But that's irrigated river country down at south of here, about 23 k away. And but like I said, it's irrigated. That's where we always grow some of our hemp down there. That's under wheat at the moment, but that'll be the area that will go under hemp. Will be green manured, and in fact this afternoon you'll see an area we have actually we've ploughed in a block already because it did have hemp in it last growing, and there's a few rogue plants came up, so the best thing to do was to bury it, and that's what we've done. Yep. So, and that's tomorrow they'll tell you what you can and you can't do, and you can't grow hemp seeds from regrowth plants. So the last thing there we're talking about is a carbon project. Now, everything we do all that on the table where we are is leading to doing a carbon project. We believe that biochar, hemp are part of the secret. And I say now, if you looking at our little bit of work with planting hemp is if we were to plant that, everyone was to plant a small area of that, we wouldn't have to worry about inventing ways of doing it. I can tell you that now. So the plant itself, I see it to be going forward, and if we can break down the barriers, and that's not that easy. Hemp's a little bit like biochar, and I went on the carbon side of things. I was on the committee in Canberra, over 10 years ago for 2 years, and I walked out after 2 years because I just couldn't, no one would listen. They had their mind made up that if you put things on the soil to store carbon, that was going to empty the pocket out of the government. And what they did, they banned compost and they banned biochar.
Literally.
Yep. For a period of time. It's back there now. But it's only at an input. Like particularly in a project like this, if you were to put tons and tons of biochar out there, there's no way in the world it's going to work, because, you know, even the basic costs of what you're going to get with the ERF, which is the value of carbon here today, is probably $30 at the most. International standards, 150. But if you put, we're doing now a lot of work with examples here on the end. I'll go through them. If you're talking about carbon projects, you've got to be very, very trusty of who you do it with. I'm telling you now, because in 25 years' time, you mightn't quite be here. So someone's going to pick up a negative if it is. So you've got to be 100% sure that you're protected if you do those things. Follow the guidelines and the costs of the project. I can tell you all that, but it varies between companies. It's something you can't do yourself. It's got to be independently all done and measured correctly. So details of the emissions and what we're looking at is all the little things that we believe will add carbon, and they are part of certainly where biochar is and hemp. You can only put a certain amount of that in as a measurement on your. If you say you have a measurement, you've got so many ton of carbon comes up in 5 years' time, then you've put more biochar out there than what. To bring that, it's calculated. So you've got to deduct it off your tonnage or your tonnage of carbon that's moving at that period. So records are important. We use 2 programs. One is AgriWeb with livestock. We can tell you where every animal is, where they came from, what's happened to them, what they're fed. And we're going into the pasture measurement side at the moment. And the same with the AgriWorld in the cropping side. So it's not without detail. But I can honestly say to you now, if you get a carbon project bearing hemp in mind as well, in a couple of areas there, it's more than you'll ever earn out of a superannuation company. I'm telling you now. But you've got to be sure that it's going to work. If it doesn't work and you don't obey the laws and the rules, you can get burnt pretty badly. So it's not just a matter of turning on the tap. So all those things there come back to actual management of your outfit anyway. And if you do measure it correctly, you get the benefits in the long term. Like records are no use to unless you can make them work. Yeah. And that's basically why we use those 2 programs, which, I think we'll go even further than that in some of the remote measurement, that sort of stuff. But I think that might be it for the minute. Yeah, that's that same fella. But in the tour we do, it's going to be a little bit of where we are, and I'll explain to you like how that country was developed. And like first thing I'll say is that look around these walls here, right? And what do you think this town was?
Timber town.
It was a timber town.
Everything.
But where we're going to in the factory side was the modern sawmill, and that was a combination of 2 sawmills, Benalbo and Malangany. And they're there, and we took that over 15, 20 years ago and turned it into bulk grain storage. But that denotes something to us here in the fact that all this country was covered in trees, bar the lighter, what I call the upper Clarence country, where it was settled first because it had no trees. But it's the one that's not as high in carbon value even now. You'll see that.
Because it had no trees on it.
Had no trees on it. Now, you look around here and you'll see the rainforests are dark green, And if you've got little single trees out there in the open, they're not dark green. And that'll tell you the same thing with anywhere in Australia. You know, so what we did, or my forebears did, they cut the hoop, the teak and the cedar, and then they clear felled it and put dairies on it. And in the 70s, it went out of dairy because it became bulk milk, and then went into beef, and it's been there ever since. So this region has got a timber background. The timber there, and I still say today, we're still living on the profits of the carbon that's in the soil that was been there for donkey's years prior. We don't know how long, but we're just starting to wear it out now. So in other words, what we are, or most farmers are miners. And grazing, they're taking the nutrients out, they're taking everything else out. And historically, they were bushfire lunatics too, and burnt everything. And all that led to degradation of soils. So our real issue, and I started to talk about there but didn't, but how we first had to change was because of our heavy rates of nitrogen fertiliser. So that was, we threw tons at it. You know, it was to get production for seeds that went into the Middle East. And we got to the stage where the organic matter, or the tailings that came out of the headers, was laying in windrows and be that thick, and it wouldn't break down because the soil was dead. And then we put spreaders on, spread it out. Then we had it all over the place, and thistles would grow in the spring and so on. But you could look at that, you could smell that soil on a rainy day, and it stunk. So we had to change our ways, and our ways were simply that, as I think it said on one of them, I went around the world and finished up with the Amish and looked at the way they composted and all this sort of stuff, and came back here, and that was the start of the change in what we did. And I'll show you a little thing that might be a little bit quirky, but we don't, like I said, Elaine Ingham taught me a lot. And before there was ever a compost tea came along, we were making a leachate, which we still make today. And that we feed that back into our, not always, but we can feed, if we've got something that's not working quite well, we can put that back into the compost rows, and you've got your biology all in there, and away it goes. So, but there's a lot of little things you learn as you go along. But it's still, at the end of the day, this thing's about a farming enterprise, and most of the things that we're doing on the side are there because we couldn't get anything, no one else had it.
Off the shelf.
Yep. So anyway.
Thanks, Jim. And Katrina and Shane are here. They've helped us do the venue. If you want to look at timber, look behind Earth Foods. If Earth Foods could open up a bit, behind there is every species of timber. They cut off these, just like me at Mullaney. It's beautiful. Think, he was just saying about, is it like the Amazon? Are we repeating the Amazon? You know, slash and burn, they cut the trees, they grow the soybeans, and then nothing grows. So it's just repeating history, aren't we? So Stuart is trying to address that, and we are privileged to be here. How many people have heard this talk? You're the chair of how many committees? Biochar, Don't Care, Carbon?
Too many.
Too many. So he's spreading the word. You just presented at Brisbane at a national conference.
Yeah.
So did they get what we got or not?
No, they got the version of, it's all right to tell people how to do something, but you've got to be sure that you can, like for instance, carbon. It's all right having soil 21 and it's the method and all that stuff, but no one goes out there in amongst all these companies that are selling the products, the projects. How do you be sure you're going to get that carbon to stay there? And that's about what this is about in farming methods. And no one really, so I sort of stood up and I think there were 100 odd farmers in the thing there, and everyone who shook my head. They said, first time anyone said that. So you've got to have a method. And I know we're all here because of a lot of reasons, but certainly hemp. And I'll still say this, the government don't know how good a plant it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's put that one down. Hemp.
No, I haven't. I have heard it, but I don't follow it there. Yeah. Mm.
Big, big for burn, and backed by Big Bang, which is other three. And that's about, coming up with the amount of disclosure you must follow it in order to get, your climate related, financial, transactions. That's in the future. But, it's on to the concept. Well worth as an organisation, guys, take a look at that. And I've got a very good person having that who was
Scary.
I don't doubt that.
You don't
Like the big
doubt
end
it.
of town. That's why we have, yeah.
Small farms, small country.
Why did we lose the good hemp rope years ago? Same story.
What was the Crimean War over in Ukraine in 200 years ago? Who could get the Russian hemp crop for the fleets, the Spanish, the French, the British? They were fighting over the hemp crop, not the oil, the hemp crop. 200 tons per boat every year, sails and ropes. What's canvas? Cannabis. John.
Quick question, Stuart. Thank you for all that. How many other sources of product do you use or blend with the hemp do you get to buy?
Or the methane side.
Any of
Oh,
Horses for course.
the answer to that is in the new plant we've got. We will, a lot of our biochar will be, go through a fluid bed, and that fluid bed will help with the production of the biochar, but it also puts some nutrients back in there. But no, not as a rule. No, the hemp itself that goes into stock feeds and whatever, that's obviously ground down. But no, we don't add anything to that. But on the biochar methane side, we certainly will be. Yeah.
So you're not getting another. You're not importing anything to go into your biochar production.
No.
It's all on farm.
So yeah, it's the product itself is. I do see, and some of the work we've done with CQU, with the last call rich and the poor, there's three things I think that will come if we're allowed to move it within areas, and that's using hemp and macadamia shells comes in very high up there, and our eucalypts selected, if you know what I mean. Not, and you know that's an area that there's benefits certainly, but hemp is right up there with it. But macas are worth adding back in. Yeah, definitely anything. Well, it's all about cost. Yeah, all about cost.
So what's in the hemp, Stu? What's in hemp? What's unique?
Well, even in natural form, it's a highly absorbent plant, right? And when you do virulize it, I can show you there's the formulas that Rich has done. It'll show you the elements of everything that's there. We've had it joined up as 3 together, 2, 1, all those things, and that information's valuable going forward, because I've got a great old saying with hemp, with biochar. Biochars ain't biochars like oils.
Yeah.
You know, in that what you make it out of is certainly a big character to what you want to use it.
So you're getting your head around that. Bamboo.
Bamboo's probably one of your better.
David. What? For the day?
No, well, we've actually, I cut the slides out because I had too many. But we're about to do some work on contour banks with miscanthus and barna grass as well.
Wow.
So that's but if you look at the work that's been done on biochar, basically, yeah, you've got the right one there in doing it. But there are many different things you can do that with.
Questions? We're going to be in the field. We're running out of time. We need lunch.
Are you the only one doing biochar in Australia?
No.
But they don't all tell the same story.
There's about
Did he say
85%
that?
of them aren't biochar.
Oils ain't oils, Stu.
No, don't do that. There was,
I've got it.
yeah, we'll cross it out.
Look at stock feeds. biochar, which has to be old.
Yep.
Oh,
We've not used it. Well, put it this way, I think so. Once you pyrolyse it, it's a different animal, but it is still under, like for instance, a lot of people are doing things with hemp around animals that technically isn't correct.
Yeah,
but-
yeah.
You know, that'll change as we go along if we follow the rest of the world.
Is it in the roots or is it in the plants? Yeah, is it in the roots? Is it in the plant?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Why aren't the researchers here listening to farmers? Why can't it be farmers telling universities what to do, not the
Well-
other way around? I'm just saying.
It's because the government don't put it in the, I'm hoping the CRC changes a lot of this and it gets
So
recognition.
Stu just mentioned CRC, not the soil CRC.
The
you wanna say
biochar,
So
so,
we've got a biochar CRC, not just a hemp CRC.
yeah, well, it's a early days, but it's not early days.
You're
It's
in or
been-
you're not in yet?
Not in yet.
Just like hemp.
Hmm.
All right. Please support a CRC for hemp and biochar. Agreed? Unanimous.
The syngas coming off that will be used to run the generators and also to run the dryers, where we burn that back in, replacing LP. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you can take that. But like hydrogen, you can, then like we've got the facilities there to actually clean it. Do that, but it hasn't happened yet.
The later we go, the later the beers start. And Stephen. Yeah.
In what we're after, basically it's that high,
Great.
right? A grain plant. If you're talking about someone 8 meters high, we don't know about that.
But I might convince you one day.
No, well, you will
Over a beer.
if it's fibre, you will, but you won't. As far as harvesting goes, if this industry is going to take off, it's got to be a plant that suits the gear that's there.
So I got a header that'll harvest with 8 meters. Take the grain off the top and take the stubble off the bottom. Australian developed. John Deere are chasing it today.
No, I don't doubt that, you know, but across the board.
Yes, so I asked the Uni of Adelaide yesterday. They said as soon as it germinates in a seedling. I got someone asked that question.
That's right. You can see it's
yesterday.
little pale. Yeah,
Oh,
little-
not by eye, no.
Well, if you look over there on that thing over there, I'll show you, but the pale, it's got a pale head, you know, and it's more, it comes out, what, 2 or 3 weeks ahead of the female. So you can see it there.
It's more advanced, so it's maturing quicker, so it looks yellower. Think about it.
But it's funny, those women catch up, see?
The women catch up. Did you hear that? Baby pineapple. There you go. I've been growing hemp for 13 years and I've never ceased to be amazed by it. I've got crops, world record crops for dual purpose. That's what, as long as we can harvest it. You heard he's got 3 headers. If his headers can't harvest it, if it's not uniform in height and maturity,
Yep.
maturity, this crop shatters and falls on the grain just by looking at it or puffing at it. So how do we do the breeding and all this? I've got seedlings this tall in Stanthorpe handling -5 degrees. It's a bloody winter crop. It comes from Russia. They plant it into snow and permafrost. It's not just a summer crop.
But we've just harvested some trial stuff here and it had all those frosts on it. Never even knocked the
So
plants
the
around.
heads didn't get, the flowering heads didn't get hammered.
No,
-1
well, it'll be around that one, yeah. But yeah,
Negative.
yeah.
frost.
And we've,
Select for that plant.
no, we have. We've done that. What they do is the boys select the actual plants that are built for certain characters, and then we breed them up from there and follow them through and see. So there's dozens of different, you know, we should call it architecture, I suppose, within the plants. You know, even the fact that we believe we've got one now that's water tolerant as well. So we've flooded the areas and then taken the plants off Yeah.
That's breaking the atom. Waterlogging. Hemp hates waterlogging.
Yeah.
Frost. You're limited to where you can grow. If you can break the atom on these, this plant will be planted 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every month of the year in Australia and the world. Think about it.
Possible.
Well, anyhow,
Possible.
I was in Central Coast, one CBD hemp farm, and
Gossip.
they got Mangrove Mountain.
Mango Mountains, yeah.
Yeah, and then what farmer did that is he did the winter crop. Then the next year actually didn't harvest the first year, and then next year it was double up.
Came up.
Huge, massive for the one
Yeah.
plant.
well, we've got these down now in the selections, the 9 weeks for a crop, 9 weeks.
It's going to go dryland. Everyone says you can't grow dryland in this water. If you can plant it in winter and you'll have a wet, cool, moist spring, we'll have it off by Christmas, just like a winter crop.
We'll have 2 crops a year. That
Two,
was,
and then another summer crop.
Yeah.
The
But in-
breeders, the industry does not understand this. Agri-futures say I'm crazy. Well, I am, but you know what I mean? Don't go. Thank you. We're all in it. We're all in the, who said that? Thank you. Anything else? We got to wrap up. Oh, sorry. Becky, sorry. You're so quiet.
Did I understand? I didn't understand. Are you essentially ripping that out to sort of what about the next one? And or are you then planting? It doesn't look like you're planting more vegetation plots than after that. So we can once we put it after it and then you develop it.
no, what's come through the header, we bail up,
Failed.
right? You'll see the round bales out there later. And no, not cutting it. We're just picking up the tailings.
The header coming out the
Header.
back of the header. Are you able to harvest it low with a header or you can't?
Reasonably low to get
This is-
under the plants. And then basically what we do, we turn the rest back in, plough it in. It's got more value there anyway.
So there's the plan.
The- I'm guilty. That's correct. Righto. We've gone, when you say ploughing it in, we only use speed tillers. these days.
Minimum tillage.
Speed tiller, goes that deep and then rolls it back
Minimum
in.
tillage.
So it's not like, but we have hit the wall this year with the not having the amount of rain that we want.
Right.
So we're going back in, it hasn't happened, but you'll see it this afternoon. We use a ground hog over the speed tilled country and go down that far with the spikes. So to give it a slightly break up that you might say that level of hardness that can come. So that's when you use a speed tiller, they're the greatest thing. Like you'll see it does 18 kilometres an hour, and you can plough it's either the door wide, and you can do that, and you're going to take everything out. So it's buried and chopped up, but we don't run heavy discs or anything these days. They're longer. Yeah. It is for us because we don't use the chemicals to knock it out. So we've got to either beat the plant.
There you
The
go.
plant's got to beat, and we plant very thickly with everything, heavy rates. Well, in our wheat, we plant round about 100 kg, the same to the hectare, the same with hemp. So we're relying on that plant mass and the rainfall, which is usually reliable, to grow that plant. So we're relying on plants. That one that was there of the soybean crop, you'll see they're very dense in the row, but that's interrowed and that's mechanically dug out. But yeah, it's not the perfect world, but we've got to do it somehow.
So we're all on a journey here, right?
Yeah.
Ask a tricky question. I've got 4 for him. It's not like.
Then the that we have to then
Cultivate.
I'm-
Say that,
I'm game enough to say to you that you'll be more benefits in burying that hemp than there would be not.
There you go.
Yeah.
Let's learn from that.
We're now gas emissions and planning incorporated way that we use the wheel and we get it from the wheel practical tools to measure them. There's basically a breakout and measure how hard the soil is. Total removed is 30% of the available horsepower. In other words, we discover that discover burn, we use 55% of available horsepower. With the stone removed, when it's taken right up now, the real thing is now huge amount of biomass off that.
Yep.
You know, that's quite tough. We couldn't even get. So there's a balance and it's better off in.
Yeah, but there's
Sorry, John, Katina had a hand.
there's
Or are you filming?
there's
Sorry.
so I'll probably counteract that in the sense that you can grow 2 crops in a year, which is say 18 or 20 weeks a year. The rest of the year you've got to put green manure crops in or do whatever you want. So it's not, you know, you've got to remember that being a farmer, you tend to want to eat everything and sell it. But, you know, if people are aware that they're going to be rewarded by doing a green manure, and you'll see the first paddock we go in up here where we've had soy in the country, it's lighter country that had MIS trees on it, and it's sown back to a Rhodes grass, but we've used things like arrowleaf clover, which is quite a deep rooted
Note that
system.
one. Arrow leaf.
And you'll see it's gone to head already there. And
Topsoil can be measured by the crop you get out of putting that biological matter back in. So it's a balance, it's like anything.
It is.
Balance.
and one thing that did happen to yeah, and it's unfortunately it didn't work. 2 years ago we started a trial with Southern Cross Uni, and I think it was Ansbig, and there were a number of people involved in it, Southern Cross Uni, and we got rained out. But what it was about, it was just waterlogged. We're looking to measure the dung beetles doing the work, and they're our greatest friend. If you can get them and they do the burying, if you look now at even the measurement of carbon, where they're talking 50 centimetres and a metre, you know, the dung beetles have got it down there, and that's solid. If it's biochar, it's solid. Yeah.
So it's minimal still, aerating, all that doesn't matter. Soil biology have this exponential recovery rate. So if you can look after them, I mean, that's the biopesticides and residues and all the rest.
Yep.
Come back and help us. So they've got some.
Especially with the biochar. Remember where the biochar is going? It's back out on the paddock. The cows are sitting in the biochar back where we want it.
I always quote Elaine, and she said, if you got the right amount of nematodes, the right amount of what's the other one, and they consuming themselves, they'll produce 200 kgs per hectare of nitrogen available to the plant.
The bugs in the soil.
Yeah.
Just, yes, you know, got some talent. Yeah. So, you know, the green manure crops do the luxury of high rainfall environment because you've got to make a living. You know, you're getting 25 inches a year, whatever it is.
Yep.
600 mil, 500 mil. You get 400 mil this next 12 months. You don't have the luxury of putting a cover crop in and putting that extra organic matter back in the ground.
Exactly.
And then the other thing I was going to say, mycorrhizal fungi is very important in these dry environments. You can start cutting up the soil, you cut up the nitrogen. That's how you lose your mycorrhizal fungi with cutting up the soil and
The soil roots.
on pellet.
The soil roots, the channels. We could go this all day, couldn't we? We're excited. You're not hungry anymore, are you? So I was going to summarise, if I'm allowed. Just say, Stu's out there doing it. I'm going to challenge Stu and Kim to consider controlled traffic farming. He's got GPS on his tractors. We're talking about compaction. So if you measure your field, you've got different areas with yield, all with soil types. You'll see it today with the soil test. So if we map it with the satellites, map it with the drones, treat those areas, just like the topsoil areas, the cut areas, treat those specifically with biology, whatever needed, and do controlled traffic. You will never travel where the roots grow. Your tractors will. We developed this permanent bed, raised bed, controlled traffic system years ago. It's taken up all over the world, just like minimum tillage and Roundup, no-till. I'm just challenging Stu because he loves the challenge, and we've had a discussion about that. I'd love to discuss that further with you in the next. Like, what's the next jump? Where's the next? You know, and the atom we're going to break. That's what we're here for. To try and work that out. So, who can tell me what the biochar came from the Amazonians that had biochar? They invented it because they were raping, pillaging, and slashing and burning the rainforest, and they realised by putting biochar. Who can tell that story better than me? What's it called? It had a special name. Thank you. Can you spell that for me here, please?
RRA, PRETA.
There's lots of things. I'm just saying we can learn from history, you know. Anything else?
There's one more question.
Sorry, I was on the different track. I was wondering. Rows, which are organic, right? So how did you manage to weed with them?
In the soybean side,
No,
in the hemp.
Good question. In a row?
Not very well.
Into a row?
No, we've done in the row.
He's done in a row to get the in a row, and you plant heavy and close to compete. Once you get it established, it'll chase the weeds out of the. We use hemp as a giant rat tail control. Cacao. You can compete with big ugly weeds with this stuff.
I don't doubt that inter-row cultivation is probably still the key part, but we've not spent enough money to change our inter-row cultivation we use for maize or for soy. So
as close as possible if you.
Yeah. Oh well, you're gonna knock it around. That's why I put it. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Now, I like narrow rows because you then compete. If you can't inter-row cultivate, you plant narrow, and establishment is critical, and you don't want that
We believe our plant breeding will allow us to have plants that will go early and go late, because we're selecting for that now. Over time, it may become something that happens within the selection of that plant or a particular plant. Like, you know, if you want something to go for fibre, it's a different planting time if you want it for seed. So, yeah.
Dictionary. What does that mean?
It's a gag. Dictionary. You drew a picture of it, try to guess it.
That's ugly. Sorry.
Raw dagger, we just use the same John Deere planters.
Disc or time?
No, they're disc.
Disc,
Disc.
openers?
Yeah, all disc.
Disc, not time. So you don't have smearing?
No, we disc, and obviously we've got the rolling it behind.
Always
Yeah.
bit of pressure post, bit of wheel, bit of roller, bit of.
What?
I think he's getting tired, so we're all getting tired.
Okay.
Thanks very much. We got lunch. We got a cool car. We are in a convoy along the friggin' highway. So please, cool car. Be careful. Have your hazard lights on if you want it, because we're going to be slow and ugly. Turning off the highway. Follow him. Back on. We're going to do a farm visit on the way to the site. So we're going to not go straight to Mara Seeds. We are going via a site. Lunch is available. Go for it.